So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Naruto Rikudou Sannin Reborn. Part 1. If you guys enjoy this, what if? And you want to see part 2? Comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends. And check out the description. And check out my playlist. So let's start the video. Chapter 1. The Sage from Another World. In the middle of a thick forest, high in the treetops, a shadow-like flash was moving at inhuman speeds. Well, it didn't leave any form of presence at all. It suddenly stopped at the edge of a metropolis, landing silently on the highest branch of the tallest tree as it observed the city in shock and amazement that such a place could possibly exist. Then, in the presence of the moonlight, a tall human figure was revealed. The figure looked like a young man in his early 20s. But his general appearance was very unique. The young man had golden blonde hair and the sharpest, most brilliant sapphire blue eyes you might have ever seen. He also had long shoulder-length hair, with his bangs seeming like they could hide his eyes behind them if he wanted to. His attire consisted of a long-sleeved, hooded black coat with a white flame pattern on the hemline, with the kanji for 6th Hokage written vertically down the back over a standard Anbu Black Ops uniform, consisting of black and gray armor, covered by a green flak jacket, metal arm guards, fingerless metal-plated gloves, black shinobi sandals. And to complete the look he wore a black 8 across his forehead like a bandana, which seemed to be engraved with symbol of a leaf with a spiral in the center. His arm guards glowed as special seals appeared over them, causing them to retract and change into a simple but shiny metal shackles around his wrists. He was also wearing 2 weapon pouches on his back waist and a large scroll attached to his lower back. The man's name was Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the recently appointed Rikudou Hokage of Konohagakure and Nidaime Jinchuriki of the Jikbai. He took a deep breath and sighed as he remembered how he found himself in this strange new world. Flashback. A few hours earlier. After several long and painful years, the 5th Great Shinobi War had finally ended in a climactic clash of titans. The fight had been between the man who had claimed to be Madara Uchiha, Tobi aka Uchiha Obito, or rather the clone of Uchiha Obito, and Naruto Uzumaki. Rikudou Hokage of Konohagakure after Naruto had foiled Tobi's plan by sealing the reformed Jikbai into himself with a new powerful Genjutsu in the 4th Great Shinobi War. Sasuke had betrayed everyone again, siding with the Obito's clone and Orochimaru who created the clone. Naruto's Genjutsu had bound the demon to him forever, with only a few minutes to spare before the extraction of the Kikbi would have killed him. Their battle shook the earth, lightning rained down from the sky and caused large craters to form across the landscape from the intensity of the clash. During one of their exchanges a nearby mountain was leveled, leaving only flat plateau in its place. But the power of the Jikbai wasn't the only thing he had attained during the war. Before he died, a redeemed Sasuke, with the help of the revived Itachi, had transferred his eternal Mangekyou Sharingan to Naruto, using a forbidden technique of the Uchiha clan that allowed them to transfer their Kekkei Genkai to others. Its name was Genjutsu. Ketsuzoku Tensum. The technique was created so they could adopt others into the Uchiha clan, but was also used as a capital punishment for actual members of the clan. It was forbidden because of the price paid by the user, their eyes being completely absorbed into the target. This left the Uchiha who used the technique with empty sockets and completely blind. First, they had to open a wound on both the user and the target that bled freely, most would off in the palm of the hand. Then, the user and target place the wounds against each other and have the Uchiha's blood flow into the target's wound. Afterwards, the person overseeing the transfer makes a few hand signs, activating the technique. The chakra flows from the user's eyes, looking much like the Genjutsu. Genra Kikjin connects with the user's eyes with the target's and transfers the power of the Sharingan into the target's eyes and rooted onto their target's DNA, as so the body of the target would not react against it. After the transfer was complete, Sasuke died with a smile as he said, "We are truly brothers now. Naruto." Afterward Naruto had started wearing Sasuke's Akatsuki cloak in honor of his fallen friend and Nagato, whose organization was taken over by Tobi and being used to bring about the war. With the power of the Jikbai and the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan he received from Sasuke, which Naruto had managed to evolve into an enhanced and perfect version of the Rinnegan, combined with his already existing abilities, proved too much for clone Obito and Orochimaru to handle. The Madara impostor had put up a good fight, but was ultimately defeated by the might of the young Hokage. Naruto looked down at his fallen foe with his new Chibaku Rinnegan as Tobi died slowly from his wounds. "It's over, Tobi. You've lost. Your army is destroyed and the Jikbai is sealed to my family line forever. It power never to be yours. Your plans to rule this world have failed." The elder shinobi seethed as he narrowed his eyes in hatred behind the mask at the look of pity his enemy was giving him. Naruto's look deepened as he took in the beaten man. Your hate and jealousy as well as your desire for power have only led you to ruin. It saddens me to think of how you could have used your strength to bring this world into an age of peace." Tobi's hate only grew for the younger man as he continued to speak down to him. Suddenly, the sounds of hundreds of feet could be heard approaching. Naruto shook his head as he turned his back on the dying man and started walking toward the sound. After a while, dozens of shinobi flooded into the clearing as they rushed forward to meet the man who had finally ended the at last. The allied shinobi forces had watched the battle from afar and cheered for the Hokage's victory. Naruto smiled toward the friends who had survived the war at the very front of the crowd. Tobi turned his head toward Naruto and the approaching crowd. When he saw that sight he swore to himself that if he was going to die, he would make the man who had ruined his plan suffer before he did. He lifted his weakened arms and began forming hand seals for the attack that would cause his chakra to go down to absolute zero, killing him instantly. However, Tobi did not care about living anymore as long as he could carry out his vengeance before he died. The black tear appeared in the air a few meters away from Naruto. Naruto's friends saw it, but before they could warn him Tobi yelled from his position on the ground as his chakra from holding open the tunnel was quickly leaving him. "Uzumaki." Naruto turned around toward Tobi whose eyes gleamed in triumph as he extended his arm out toward the Hokage and with the last of his strength used the power from the Rinnegan eye he took from Nagato's corpse to exact his final revenge. Shinra Tensei. The technique had hit its mark and Tobi's final moments were peaceful as he watched Naruto being thrown straight into the tear and disappear into the tunnel and out the other side. The technique drained the last of his chakra and his body went limp as the allied shinobi raced toward them with horrified looks. Tobi died with an insane smile behind his mask. The distortion created by Tobi's technique closed with no chakra to sustain it. Several shinobi who knew Naruto personally dropped to their knees and stared in shock, and the Konoha shinobi collectively bowed their heads in silent vigil for their lost leader. Hinata, a person who loved Naruto since they were children, cried out and sobbed while her friends tried to comfort her while suffering their own grief. However, those who suffered the most were his teacher Kakashi and his teammate Sakura and Sai. Sakura buried her face into Kakashi's chest. The man himself was close to tears himself after losing two of his students, and his other teammate actually Sai did shed tears for the man he respected more than anyone since his brother. Others who had known Naruto suffered in silent tears and others in loud sobs. From that day forward, they all agreed that the man known as Naruto Uzumaki was the greatest Hokage, as well as the greatest shinobi their world had ever seen. The four remaining caged then and there told the army that the alliance would continue permanently and peace would finally reign in the shinobi world and they would see themselves not as individual villages but as a single people united. It was this day that became known throughout the ninja world as the greatest and saddest event in their history. The army began to move out, some went to spread the news of the events that had transpired while the others marched to Konoha to prepare a funeral of their fallen hero. Meanwhile with Naruto was falling. All around him was complete darkness with a light that was rapidly approaching. However, as he was approaching he noticed that it was starting to close. He quickly used his chakra to enhance his descent before he was trapped in this place for eternity. He fell through the opening just as it closed and now found himself falling at terminal velocity toward what he assumed was the ocean. He knew if he hit the water from the height he was falling then he would die. He quickly drew upon the Jibai's godlike chakra to form his signature golden sage of 6 paths cloak and sent out several chakra arms toward the water's surface to act as supports and slow his rate of descent. This tactic was successful as it allowed him to gently lower himself onto the surface of the water. He took in his surroundings and used his knowledge of the situation combined with what he knew of Jikin Hijutsu. Naruto quickly deduced that Tobi had intended to trap him in that dimensional void for eternity. But thankfully, due to the fact that he was dying, Tobi didn't have good control over the technique and had repped a secondary tier to this place by mistake. However, Naruto had a feeling that this place was probably a completely different world from his own. However, even though he had escaped Tobi's plan to trap him had still succeeded in a way, as his being here meant that he was effectively trapped in this place for the rest of his life. He assumed Tobi had died from the usage of the technique combined with his injuries and low chakra. This meant that the secret of how to perform the technique had died with him. In the end, it seemed that the once mighty Uchiha had had the last laugh. However, Naruto satisfied himself in the knowledge that he was no longer a threat to his own world and his friends as he resigned himself to the fact he would never return to home. "I hope you burn in hell for a long time, Tobi." Naruto pulled out the bubble blower that had once belonged to Utakata, the former Rokugan Chikriki, and used it to create a single large bubble using the FUDM and quickly jumped inside and had it take him up into the clouds where he put up the blower and sat in a meditative stance. His eyes changed and became toad-like as entered sage mode and searched for a nearby landmass. He quickly located a large concentration of small chakra signatures and had the bubble take him toward the source. He activated the newly dubbed Chibuku Rinnegan and saw a city about 150 kilometers or so away from his location. It took him less than 2 hours to reach a forest near his destination, and his transparent vehicle allowed him to see the port of a very large city with structures that dwarfed any buildings he had ever seen, and noticed that these people were more advanced technologically speaking in comparison to his own people. Flashback end. Naruto continued on his way towards the unknown city. He activated his Shibuku Rinnegan once more and found that he was on the right path as a suburban residential area appeared before him. He jumped the last tree for the forest as he landed without making a sound as he quickly scanned the area. To his surprise he found that the suburban neighborhood's community had even less chakra than the civilians of Konoha. He kept moving towards the city when something caught his eye. Using his eye's abilities he could easily read the mind of anyone, but he wanted to avoid that as it would kill whoever he used it on, plus if he wanted to read someone's mind there were easier ways to do it. He crouched on a nearby rooftop as he fixed his eyes on a confrontation between a street thug and a younger high school student in an alleyway. Naruto found it a bit suspicious, so he used his chakra to enhance and focus his sense of hearing and his Shibuku Rinnegan to spy on what was going on below his position. In the alleyway below. The thug was looking at the boy and asking him if he wanted to buy some drugs. The boy looked shocked. The thug smirked as he looked at the schoolboy. "Oh, I have an innocent in my hand. Ha ho ho, what a catch. I'll give him a free sample to try and then he'll be hooked." The boy was terrified at the look the thug was giving him. It was like looking into the eyes of a hungry wolf. "Oh shit. This is just great. What's this guy doing here selling drugs? Should I run? What if he takes out a gun and shoots me? What am I supposed to do now? Okay, if he gives me anything I'll just throw it away. Hey kid. I have got some awesome shit, wanna try it? I can guarantee that once you do, it'll rock your world." The thug tried to give him a charming smile, but the kid remembered that look he saw in the man's eyes and figured it was a trick. "No thanks. I am good." The poor boy laughed nervously as the thug's eyes changed from cheerful to pissed as he scowled before reaching into his jacket. The boy saw the thug pull out a silver-plated gun as the guy aimed it towards his head. "Kid, I like you. You seem like a nice kid, so give up the money and I won't have to shoot your brains out." The boy panicked and slowly crouched down to the side looking into his bag and saying, "Okay. Just wait a minute. I will give you all I got." But Naruto had just about enough of this thug harassing the boy. Therefore, he crouched forward as the boy scrambled through his bag looking for the money, charged down the building at the thug, using his extremely high speed as he stuck himself to the wall using his chakra and silently landed behind the thug before grabbing him and leaping up to a nearby roof without making a single sound. The student felt a cool breeze of air as the hairs on the back of his head stood up straight. He turned around and stood there in shock as the thug had just seemingly vanished without a trace. This spooked the young boy even more and decided to run back home as fast as he could, not daring to look back. Meanwhile, Naruto, having captured his prey, knocked out the shocked criminal before he used the Kokoro no, a technique he had picked up from one of Konoha's intelligence and interrogation unit members. It allowed him to enter the target's subconscious and extract any information needed, even if the target had forgotten it by placing his hand on the man's head. He had learned that he was on an island nation named Nippon Koku or the state of Japan, which was located in the Pacific Ocean. It lied to the east of the Sea of Japan, China, North Korea, South Korea and Russia, stretching from the Sea of Okhotsk in the north to the East China Sea and Taiwan in the south. All these names and places of these places seemed strange to him. Their language, Japanese, was the same as his and also picked up a popular secondary language called English from the man's mind. Along with the language he also found out every bit of information he would need to survive and quickly brought himself up to speed about this new and foreign world he found himself in. He found out that he was in a mega city called Tumkim Metropolis, Tumkim 2, or just Tumkim, one of the 47 prefectures of Japan. Tumkim was the capital of Japan, the center of the greater Tokyo area, and was the largest metropolitan area of this world. It was also the seat of the Japanese government and the imperial palace, the home of the Japanese imperial family. He also learned that the people here had no clue how to utilize chakra and shinobi were non-existent anymore, and those who did relied only on taijutsu and ninja tools to fight. After Naruto had finished reading the thug's mind, he went to find the nearest police station with a grin on his face. Naruto had left the thug inside the Tumkim police lockup with no memory of how he got there with the stolen merchandise he had taken at gunpoint from a local convenience store. Needless to say, the police were baffled about how he got inside a secure police station without anybody noticing or caught by the security cameras, but they quickly forgot about that and booked the guy anyway, as he was one of the more slippery of Tumkim's drug dealers and part-time enforcer for the Chinese triads. Armed with knowledge he got about the thug, Naruto started swiftly leaping from rooftop to rooftop, starting from the police station where he had dumped the crook before heading out to search the city. Naruto hid his presence in the shadows while running at inhuman speeds to avoid being seen by the locals. Then he used what he learned from the criminal's mind to track down one of the crime bosses he worked for part-time in Chinatown. Naruto reached the restaurant the triads used as a front for their operations, guarded by gangsters and hired street thugs. The former Hokage grinned before he quickly and stealthy defeated the crime boss's muscle before he reached the man and knocked him unconscious. Then, after using the Kokoro note to extract the codes and passwords for the man's bank accounts and the locations of his other hidden assets, Naruto made several phone calls under a henge, and a few briefcase drop-offs later, the man was effectively cleaned out. After the blonde shinobi had left the man completely bankrupt, Naruto framed him as an informant to the Tokyo police on his business partners. When the man woke up, he felt all of his worst nightmares come true all in that one night. Time skip. A few days later. Through Naruto's use of the information he had taken from the thug and the crime boss, he learned of the other criminal organizations and their leaders. He found out that apparently the Chinese triads and the Japanese organizations called the Yakuza were the central powers in the city's underground. These gangs had control over certain parts of the city. They were the leaders of the city's criminal underbelly. Their businesses mostly revolved around art theft, bank fraud, contract killing, drug trafficking, extortion, illegal gambling, money laundering, arms trafficking, and last but the worst in Naruto's opinion, underground slavery. There were a couple of local street gangs made up of school kids in their teens. One in particular that caught his attention was the one with a weird name, Ragnarok. Nevertheless, he thought he should check these gangs out to see what these kids were made of. He made 100 bunshin and gave them the order to search and gather information on his targets. He then made a clone to go to a clothes store to buy him some less conspicuous clothes. The next day, Naruto was seen in a rather expensive 5-star hotel room that he had rented for the night using the henge no jutsu. The technique allowed him to transform into a dark-haired, dark-eyed middle-aged executive of Japanese descent, complete with a business suit and briefcase. After sleeping in a comfortable, if a bit on the large, bed, he took a shower. After getting cleaned up, he changed into the new clothes his clone bought for him, which consisted of a long black coat, a cream-colored scarf, a black long-sleeved compression muscle shirt, and a pair of black slacks. He kept his black shinobi sandals as they didn't need to be replaced. He mused at what his clone had bought and laughed, as it was what he would have brought. He ate a rather large breakfast course before he ventured out into the city once again. He hid his weapons on his person and wore his arm guards under his coat for some extra protection and activated the hidden retractable arm blades he had added to them. Each blade reached from below his wrists to his elbows and was concealed from sight. It extended about 10 centimeters after his fingertips and locked into place. He tested the blades by swinging them a couple of times. When he was satisfied, flicked his wrists upwards and the blades retracted into their original positions with twin clicks. Naruto used henge no jutsu to once again transform into the businessman before he left the room and checked out of the hotel. After walking a couple of blocks, he found a dark alley and made sure that no one could see him before and released the transformation. He tensed his muscles before he jumped up and landed on the roof of the neighboring building. He then started to run toward the business district, unseen by the masses below. In the business district, Naruto found an accessories shop. When he enters the shop, Naruto finds a cute girl in her early 20s sitting at the register, busy reading what looked like a romantic novel. Naruto was looking around and found what he needs: a black military-style sea bag and a pair of pitch-black sunglasses to hide his eyes for when he activates his Chibuku Rinnegan. He went to the register to pay for the items and waited to be checked out. However, it seemed that the store clerk was so engrossed in her book that she had yet to notice his presence. He cleared his throat loudly to get her attention. The action startled her and she dropped her book on the ground. She crouched to pick it up angrily and looked at one who started her with a rather annoyed look. However, it didn't last as she beheld the brightest sapphire blue eyes she had ever seen and the very dazzling tall blonde young man that came with them. She thought he looked around her age. He smiled at her, causing her to blush as she couldn't look him in the eye due to a sudden bout of shyness. "Excuse me, miss, I'm sorry if I interrupted your reading, but could you tell me how much it is for the sea bag and sunglasses?" "Oh, let's see. Ah yes, for the sea bag and sunglasses that will be 39.24 yen. He pulled out his wallet and paid her for the items while also leaving a rather generous gift for her. "Thanks for the help. I really appreciate it." As he turned away he winked at her slyly while flashing her his signature fox-like grin. The blonde's actions caused her blush to return with a vengeance. She felt she might faint. Naruto placed on his new sunglasses and slung the sea bag across his right shoulder. He glanced back out of the corner of his eye as he was about to leave and saw the young woman at the counter pick up her phone and take a quick snapshot of him before she began texting furiously while letting out a girlish squeal with a blush. Naruto smirked and thought, still got it. After his foray at the store, he walked to the center of the district and found it buzzing with activity. He found the office of the owners of an old Buddhist temple and the land surrounding it that one of his clones had found for a more permanent residence. It was deep in the forest in an isolated valley surrounded by several mountains. The only way into the temple was a rather long stairway in between the mountains. He took a deep breath before entering the office. A half hour later, Naruto walked out of the office with a smile. As of that day, he owned the mountains and the area where the temple resided a few kilometers outside of the city. He had to use the Chibuku Rinnegan so that the previous owners would forget his face, but remember that they had sold the property to someone. After concluding his business with them, Naruto went to a number of banks and transferred the rest of his money into several bank accounts around the country before he started settling into his new estate. When he arrived, the temple was in a horrible state of disrepair, and so Naruto, with the help of a 2000 kage bunshin, began fixing up the place and finished everything from the gates and fence to the entire estate within the span of a week. He even made a natural onsen and added Hiraishin no Jutsu sealer Jutsu Shiki, security and defensive seals all around the entire temple and surrounding area. Overall, Naruto felt it was a great success and the temple looked like it did when it was lived in by the monks. With all the living arrangements and essentials out of the way, Naruto focused on his next objective. What to do now? He got down into his meditation stance and sorted through his thoughts on what to do next. Time skip. 1 week later. After careful deliberation lasting several days, Naruto finally knew what he was going to do. He would be the one to introduce his people's ideas to a few chosen disciples and teach them the ways of the shinobi. For this purpose, he took upon himself the title of the Rikudou Sannin and began his search for people from this world who were worthy of the things he had to offer. And thus the legend begins anew. Chapter 2. The legend begins. Yokohama Chinatown. It had been a week since Naruto had made his decision to start a shinobi sect and take on the title of Rikudou Sannin. Rumors of his run-in with the Chinese mafia of the Yokohama Chinatown had spread across town and sent ripples and waves of fear through the city's criminal underworld. Ma Hakubi Ryu, uncle of Ma Kensei and Ma Sagetsu, was curious about this mysterious figure whose appearance had caused such reactions in some of the city's most hardened criminals. The things he heard from overhearing the conversations of local gang members who frequented his establishment about the man bordered on superstition. They spoke of the man like he was some kind of demon straight from the pits of hell that was capable of amazing superhuman or supernatural feats depending on the telling. Regardless of the various rumors surrounding his abilities, the man had single-handedly taken down the local kingpin that many, including the police, had considered untouchable and shattered his organization in less than a single night. While it had been the crime lord's associates who actually killed the guy for allegedly giving them up to the cops, the state of the guards and the corroborating statements from the guards and enforcers confirmed that he did indeed exist. From there the rumors spread quickly, and now the rival gangsters were on guard in case they were next. Hakubi had a growing feeling with each rumor that there was something going on, something that could prove to be highly significant in the future. After informing his staff that he would be gone for a few hours and to take care of things while he was gone, his grandniece Renka, along with his two disciples Jensen Ryu and Count Shikatsu, noticed his mood and decided to accompany him. Renka, curious of their sudden outing, asked, "What's going on, Uncle Hakubi? You've been acting strange ever since you heard about that situation involving that mob boss. And now you're suddenly taking off to who knows where. There's something going on you're not telling us and I want to know what it is." Hakubi continued to walk as he answered his grandniece, "You are correct, my child. The rumors about the man who attacked the crime lord have given me pause for thought. There is something bigger behind this that I believe may be relevant in coming events. That is why I believe it is time to pay a visit to your father." Renka did a double take. She had been trying to get Habuki to give her father's location for weeks and now the man was telling her. "So daddy is here. Tell me where he is right now so I can drag his ass back home." Habuki calmly replied, Now Renka, this is not the time for that if my suspicions are correct. Besides, you will be seeing him soon enough." Renka was fuming when she noticed that Hakubi had stopped and she realized that they had gone quite away from the restaurant district and into a quieter part of town in front of a dojo with two massive doors and a sign above the gate that showed the dojo's name. Remsen Paku. Shirahama Kenichi had just returned from protecting Yukita KMZM and Takeda Iki from the 8th Fist of the Ragnarok gang, Nanjim Kasara aka Valkyrie and her goons. They had barely managed to avoid getting surrounded thanks to the unexpected arrival of Naijima Haro, Kenichi's bad friend who dreamed of world domination, starting with his new Shinpaku alliance, and he was going to head upstairs to his room when he and the others heard knocking coming from the front gate. Hayato Furinji, Miu's grandfather raised an eyebrow. Well, I wonder who that could be. They left to see who it was when they heard him exclaim, Habuki, my old friend, it's good to see you. Come in. Come in. They reappeared in the dining room moments later, followed by 4 people Kenichi had never seen before. The first, who he assumed was Habuki, was an elderly man of Chinese descent. Hakubi is a balding old man with a mustache who wears traditional Chinese clothes. Unlike his younger nephew, Hakubi also wears glasses and has a black beard and long wide eyebrows. After moving his gaze from Hakubi, he took in his companions. 2 of them were young men in their late teens to early 20s. Next to them was an extremely gorgeous girl who looked to be Kenichi's age. Kensei paled when he realized who it was and quickly tried to creep away silently before she saw him. However, his hope sank when he heard her voice behind him, and just where do you think you're going, daddy? Kensei turned toward his daughter who had just got the others' attention by announcing the fact that she was Kensei's child. Forgive me, Renka. But I'm not ready to go back to China just yet. He turned to Hakubi. Why did you bring her here, uncle? Habuki placed a placating hand on Renka's shoulder just as she was about to shout something at her recently discovered father and bowed his head. Sorry about this, Kensei. But something has come up in the last week that I believe everyone here must know about, otherwise wouldn't have brought her here. He then turned and introduced himself to the others. Greetings, I am Ryuma, Kensei's uncle, but you can call me Hakubi. He gestured to his companions. And these are my students Ryu Jensen and Shikatsu Kaon. Ryu Jensen was a young man of about 18 to 20 years of age. He had long black hair that covered his ears and his forehead, and he wore a blue shirt with a red suit jacket, and he had a golden medallion. Shikatsu Kaon was a young man of about 18 to 20 years of age. He had short brown hair, and he wore a white shirt with a pair of small golden circular glasses. Both of them bowed, pleased to meet you. He then pointed to the fuming girl. And this is Marenka, Kensei's daughter and my grandniece. She was a young girl of average size and has short dark blue hair up to her chin with bells around the top of her head that makes her look similar to a cat and, like Miu, she has large breasts about the same bust size as her. She finally remembered her manners and bowed as well. Hello, you can call me Renka. She said with a simple polite smile. Hayato turned to his granddaughter. Miu would be so kind as to bring us some tea. Miu nodded and ran to get a pot boiling. A few minutes later they were sitting across from each other after the masters introduced themselves and their students. Kensei turned to his uncle. So uncle, what is it that you wish to tell us? Hakubi started by saying, we all know that most things that are in this world are not what they seem. The whole group nodded as a signal to continue. He continued, Chinese triads or mafia is speaking of man like he was some kind of demon straight from the pits of hell that was capable of amazing superhuman or supernatural feats depending on the telling. The mafia underworld is buzzing about a man. The masters, learning of this mysterious fighter that had taken down a local crime syndicate in less than a few hours, all came to the same conclusion. Kimitsuji Akasum decided to voice their opinion. It sounds like we may be dealing with a fighter who possesses skills at the level of a martial arts master and has an unknown style of fighting along with a hidden agenda. Hakubi nodded. Yes, I came to the same answer myself. But what concerns me is that according to the rumors our unknown master is his age, some say merely a year or 2 older than young Kenichi here and others say maybe about Kusaka Shigeru's age. That caused looks of surprise among the masters and Kenichi himself. Akasum placed a hand under his chin. Well, that's certainly impressive, a master class fighter at that age, whoever he is, he must be extremely talented and well trained to be at that level. Therefore, we are dealing with an every 1,000 years kind of prodigy. He might be even stronger than you, elder. Everyone was stunned silent at Kisum's rationalization. Hayato nodded as he stroked his beard. This could prove to be interesting. I think I would like to meet this fellow. It would be quite a sight to see. Hakubi agreed and thanked them for their time as he dragged Renka away before the doors closed behind them. The masters turned to Kenichi who got the feeling he wasn't going to like what they were thinking. He wasn't disappointed when eyes began to glow with a familiar light. Akasum spoke for all of them as he said, well, it seems we will have to take your training to the next level. Get some sleep, Kenichi, for tomorrow you will start with a more intensive training regime. It won't be as easy as the one you had before. Kenichi paled. They call that torture they put me through the easy training. They really are going to kill me. I have to get out of here. He tried to run but was quickly caught by Shigeru and tossed into his room. A few minutes later he managed to fall asleep. Unbeknownst to the inhabitants of the dojo, their conversation with Hakubi hadn't gone without being overheard as a shadowy figure hidden in the trees had heard every word and smiled before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto's temple. At the top floor of the temple that was bought and renovated by Naruto, we see a dark room with candles lit and windows shut. The room looked like it belonged to the previous head priest of this temple. It was a rather large room with an enormous bed at the eastern side of the room, with a large walk-through window to the north, showing the scene of mountains and forest that surround the temple. There was a bathroom on the leftmost corner of the south side and a door connecting the rest of the building on the opposite corner. The candlelight and the Egmro incense smoke gave an air of peace and tranquility to the dark room. In the center of this room was Naruto, who was deep meditating in the Padmasana or lotus position, and above him was a kunai. More specifically a Hiraishin kunai, and it was tied to the ceiling with some ninja wire. They differ from a standard kunai in that they have 3 blades instead of 1, and on the handle, which is thicker than normal, are the jutsu shiki for Naruto's Hiraishin no jutsu. Naruto's father Namikaze Minato notes also said that it's a bit heavier than a normal kunai. The prongs on them also make it more deadly in melee fighting. Lotus position is a cross-legged sitting posture originating in meditative practices of ancient India, in which the feet are placed on the opposing thighs. It is an established posture, commonly used for meditation, in the Hindu yoga and Buddhist contemplative traditions. The position is said to resemble a lotus, to encourage breathing proper to associated meditative practice, and to foster physical stability. Under where Naruto was seated was an Uzumaki seal he used to regulate and control the whole seal array system of his temple. Naruto slowly opened eyes and revealed his Sennin-do eyes that were toad-like eyes. Yellow irises, with horizontal bar-like pupils and reddish-orange pigmentation around the eyes, these marks of a true sage were on each eye. Naruto took a deep breath, exhaled and started to unfold his legs so he could stand. He stood up stretched and formed a Rasengan in his right hand, then on his left hand. Then he made a futon. Rasengan looks fairly similar to an ordinary Rasengan, except it has 4 small white blades like protrusions surrounding it, making it look like a miniature Fukma shuriken, and also makes a buzzing sound like a saw. He did the same as before, released the ensign deeply. There was a glow all over the room that came from the intricate yet exquisite Uzumaki seal design that ran the whole room and started from Naruto's position. The glow lessened then gradually stopped altogether. Good thing I had installed my own electrical generator using the seals from the same design as the one in Konoha. His heart hurt a bit as he mentioned his home, but he had already given up on the hope of any kind of return. So he was about to leave his room when he suddenly received the memories. He smiled as these memories came from the Kage Bunshin he sent to a dojo called Rimzenpaku. He thought that it was good of the Kage Bunshin to place a Hiraishin Jutsu Shiki on the main building of the dojo. So I am being investigated by these martial artists, huh? They do have the highest amount of power I have seen here. But I don't want to engage them now, and plus I have yet to find anything evil in this group. Well, except the training they were given by that poor boy. What was his name again? Oh yeah, Kenichi, Shirahama Kenichi. He is not made for fighting completely. Naruto sighed deeply as he remembered that stunning young woman with a sword on her back wearing a pink kunoichi kimono, but damn, Kusaka Shigeru was so cute, I mean come on, she was long beautiful purple hair, deep crimson eyes, and not to mention the body of a goddess. I have to also get to know her because she is the closest thing to a kunoichi I have seen in this world. And moreover that she is a swordswoman and loves animals. I think I am in love. Oh well then I have to decrease my activities and to keep them off my track. But I need to get legal documents, identification papers, passports etc. But of course I will not give them my real vital information. And for that I need money I cannot get from doing missions anymore. So I think I will pay a visit to the Yakuza this time. The city. Naruto was speeding off on the roof. He was wearing the same as before when he came to this world. But he was wearing a black cloth hit-I-8 like a bandana hiding his hair with a symbol meaning shinobi instead of the Konoha hit-I-8. He was also wearing a black cloth mask the same as his sensei Kakashi had. He did not bring the new Uzumaki Fukin no show. He kept it hidden back in the temple where he had activated the security and defensive seals. He knew no one in this whole world can find let only get in the temple. But his shinobi instincts told him so, and he accepted it. He kept running to the Yakuza district which was quite far. He also had to get stealth too. Yakuza district. After a few hours later, he reached a brothel called the Japanese Tsunami. His Kage Bunshin had used a Henge no Jutsu and changed into a Uchiha Sasuke that was wearing an Armani suit to enter and gather some intelligence about the Yakuza running these parts. Begin flashback. The moment Sasuke entered, all eyes were on him. So he went to the bar and asked for sake as he waited for his charms to work so to speak. One of the daring girls, a beautiful brunette that goes ironically by the name Sakura, approached him. Sasuke was laughing his ass off in his head. She started to flirt with him by showing him her large assets and he gave her one of those knockout smiles and took the bait. She asked him to go to her room so that she would charge him less if he showed her a good time. Being any hot-blooded young man, he accepts her challenge and she drags him with her by the tie. She made a victory sign to her coworkers who stared at her with jealousy in their eyes. A few moments later as they were going to the room, Sasuke noticed that there were a couple of hidden cameras in the walls of the building's hallways and shady-looking men here and there. He figured that they were Yakuza and the cameras were for extortion. Sakura opened the door, while he followed and closed the door. He found that the room has a very sexy feel to it, but the minute he closed the door, he noticed that he was being watched, so he turned his back to remove his suit's jacket. He started a fast series of hand seals and mentally said, Majin. Kokoro Mieru no the activated and covered the whole room and that showed Sasuke was starting to get hot and heavy with Sakura. He turned and walked towards the young woman who was trying to seduce him into bed. He asked her in a clear voice, Sakura-san, Gomen, but I have to ask you. Were you forced into this life or you got in willingly? Please answer me truthfully. Sakura was quiet as she had never been asked this question before. She just looked at him nervously. He said calmly, I will not hurt you. I just want to find out the truth, nothing more. Are you a cop or something? She said not looking at him anymore. He replied yep, something like that and if you tell me the truth I will help you any way I can. I promise you. So, why are you working for the Yakuza? She turned and looked him straight in the eye and said, do you honestly believe that you can help me? Why even bother with me? Naruto walked and sat next to her on the bed and said I really do anything you need I can help you just tell me what I need to know. She got teary eyes and said angrily, can you heal my daughter? How can you? He embraced her on his chest and whispered it's okay. It will be alright just let it all out. She started to cry her eyes out as he comforted her. I think I can do something about your daughter if you help me. So do we have a deal? He gave her his hand. She took it and said, yes, anything for my child to get better. So what do you want to know? He said one word and it was everything. So he listened to her story that the Yakuza will give her the medical care for her daughter in return for her services. He did not like what he was hearing. He found out that the girls were either forced into this life by rape and or extortion or they would kidnap young women who had no families. So no one will come looking for them. This did not go well with Naruto who was about to go by on these fucking Yakuza. He told her to be his informant for this gang if there is anything of importance to tell him when they meet up in a few days. He gave her money and told her to act as if they had sex as to throw off any suspicion. He started to mess up his clothes and released the walk to the door and was about to leave when she called out to him. He turned towards her as she surprised him with a kiss on the cheek and she whispered thank you for everything. Really thank you. He smiled and waved it off saying think nothing of it at all, my lady. Ends flashback. Naruto enters the brothel called the Japanese Tsunami as Sasuke again. He meets Sakura again and she tells him that there is a secret meeting of the Yakuza in a mansion in the wealthy part of Tokyo. She said they were meeting for something about bringing or helping another organization to Tokyo. Naruto to say the least was interested by this development and asked her if there is anything else. She shook her head in the negative and Naruto gave her a large sum of money and said to her, listen I want you to go and buy a house for you and your daughter to move into, away from all this. Okay. Also you go and stay with your child in her room at the hospital. I will help you after I finish something. She nodded quietly as he stood and walked out the bar. He was thinking, I have to send a Kage Bunshin to follow, protect and heal her daughter. He made a Kage Bunshin while moving and gave it a mental order which it nodded and went on its way. The wealthy parts of Tokyo. Naruto reached this area quickly as he wanted to catch all who were involved. He got there just in time to see the Yakuza bosses entering a very large traditional Japanese mansion. Naruto activated his Shibuku Rinnegan and saw a lot of Yakuza bodyguards and he detected a person of high power level, similar to the martial artists of Rimzenpaku but much weaker. First, I have to get rid of the goons. Then the Yakuza bosses along with that martial artist. Okay, let's rock. He used a Shunshin no Jutsu and he appeared on the top and started a series of high-speed hand seals and finished at the Taurus sign and whispered, Nihin Shimjan no Jutsu then a fluttering rain of sleep-inducing illusory white feathers came down on the Yakuza goons as they all fell asleep. He stopped and located the bosses and the martial artist in the conference room. He sensed that there were about 12 people in that room. He took a deep breath and sneaked in. Conference room. In the closed room were 12 men sitting around a rather large oval table. 10 of the Yakuza who were all wearing expensive suits of different shades and colors were seated on either side of the long table. A Chinese, who had an apathetic face with a Fu Manchu mustache and ponytail hairstyle and a rather large muscular built body, was sitting on one end of the table. He was wearing traditional Chinese clothes. The top honcho Yakuza was sitting on the other end. He was a bold rather fat man wearing traditional robes. He had a scar on the right cheek of his face. One of the Yakuza angrily asked his superior, Basu. What is this Gaijin doing in our meeting room? Then all his fellow Yakuza looked at their boss for an explanation which he gave. Since that incident with the Chinese mafia of the Yokohama Chinatown that you all know, I have come to think that we might need a martial artist expert for protection. Because you know there are crazy martial artists everywhere, so it is just a precaution. His name is Retsuman K, and I hired him from the Black Tiger White Dragon Alliance. He is the one that called the human calamity. Pleased with what they heard, nodded. The Yakuza started arguing about the Yokohama Chinatown territory as to whether to take it or not. Naruto, who was in the room the whole time hiding in the shadows, smirked and activated his Shibuku Rinnegan eyes and made the Tora hand seal and whisper Meijin. Kakuanjo no Jutsu. He had taken this for the Fukin no Sho when he became Hokage, but it added some changes to it. The room froze as a black veil of complete darkness covered it, and then these blood-red eyes appeared as well. The Yakuza began to panic as they couldn't see anything at all but these eerie eyes that were looking at them. Then they heard a terrifying and evil laughter roaring all around them in the room. Even Kei was shocked and terrified at this. The boss was shaking and shouted at the laughing voice, "Who are you and what do you want? Show yourself." The laughter increased even more and a calm demonic voice answered, "Hahaha. I am the shadowed hand of death and I have come to make you pay for your crimes." All the red eyes changed to purple eyes with rings and a red iris, with 3 tomo on each of the 4 rings. The tomo started to spin, and the 10 Yakuza looked into those eyes and just collapsed to the floor. This scared the shit out of the Yakuza boss and Kei. Then as it came, the darkness just went, leaving the 2 men terrified. Out of the furthest wall shadow, a being of great and powerful presence appeared and made both men fall down on their knees as if they were bowing to it, but the Yakuza boss fell to the floor, but he was still conscious and terrified. The being had walked to the martial artist first, who was still trying to stand up and fight but couldn't. The being walked, placed his hand around Kei's neck and lifted him as if he weighed nothing and stared into his eyes. The being's eyes were the same eerie and petrifying eyes they saw before, and it was like it was staring right into his soul and judging him. His life flashed before his eyes as the demonic eyes read his mind, not that he knew. The being spoke in the same cold demonic voice and said, "Your hands are stained by the blood of the innocent and you have no remorse. I sentence you to have your soul removal." The being placed his hand on Kei's head as it started with its judgment. Its eyes started to glow and spin as the being's hand pulled out pale apparition from Kei, who tried to struggle but could move a muscle. It removed the soul and Kei's eye went blank as he just died. The being threw the soul downward as the shadows claimed it. He placed the body on the floor and walked to the Yakuza boss, who was trying to crawl away from this demon. He was terrified as he saw what the being did to Kei. The being appeared in front of the fat man and lifted him by the collar of his robes like he was a piece of paper. The boss then faced the demonic being face that covered everything except those eyes. He was going to die and will not see his wife and kids anymore. Those were the thoughts that were running through his mind. The demonic eyes started to spin and glow. The demon said, "Oh, what, were you forced into this life by your family? You never wanted to be a member of the Yakuza to begin with. You never killed anyone innocent and you were just an honorable as a leader, even if a bit greedy." This stunned the large man as how this being of great power now read him like an open book. "Tell you what, I will give you a chance to be with your family again." The man couldn't believe what he had heard. The being continued, "But you will have to forget about this life and take your family and start a new life somewhere else. Take whatever you need for your family and leave. Live a humble and happy life with your family. But remember that I have given you a chance, so don't waste it or you will see me again, understand?" The man simply nodded and the being's eyes glowed once more and everything went white. 4 days later. Naruto had already taken the money and information he needed from the Yakuza. He even erased the memories of the 10 Yakuza members to get a clean slate in life. He placed the money in the banks and got the legal papers finished. He found out that there is a hidden organization. Its name was Yami, is a worldwide organization of martial artists who use their skills to gain power. Yami was created after World War II to keep the old arts alive because many martial artists died during the war. It is led by the One Shadow Nine Fists and is divided into 2 divisions. The hand-to-hand combat division and weapons division. Now Naruto knows that for every organization there is an opposite one. Rimzenpaku was the opposite side and is truly the center of the Katsujin Ken style of martial arts, protecting fist, which protects life, in contrast to the Satsujin Ken, killing fist, which abides to completely destroy the opponent. "So I know the ones I have to be ready for," thought Naruto as he leaped through the city again. Naruto had been searching the city for people to take as his first potential disciples using his Kage Bunshin. The preliminary results of the search had proved fruitful as several candidates had been located throughout the metropolis. He continued to watch these individuals for a few days to see if they were worthy of his teachings. The prime candidates were a boy named Shirahama Kenichi and some of his friends, along with 5 members of a local neighborhood gang, comprised of potential martial artists called Ragnarok named Hermit, Thor, Valkyrie, Siegfried, Berserker and a few others that caught his eye. He also thought about the masters his clone had seen at the Rimzenpaku dojo, but decided to wait a while before crossing that particular bridge. For now he would focus on one of them before moving on to the others and decided to approach the one who called herself Valkyrie. Naruto Temple. Naruto rose from his meditation position and donned his newly modified coat. It was the same coat he had worn in his battle against Nagato, with a new addition of a hood similar to Team Taka's old Akatsuki cloaks, with the same red with black flame design on the rim of the hood. He also had taken to wearing a face mask like the one his teacher Kakashi had worn every day Naruto had known him. After securing the temple's various defenses, he leaped out into the moonlit night to meet his possible first student. Industrial District. Nanjum Kasara was itching to have a rematch with that blonde dairy cow that had beaten her and had been taking out her frustrations on a training bag for the past few days. She was on her way back to the abandoned building she had claimed as her base of operations when a sudden fog had fallen over the area. She found navigating it was next to impossible and was effectively lost. As she was deciding about what to do next, she heard a voice that seemed to come from all directions. "Good evening." She looked around searching for the source of the voice. "Who's there? Come out before I find you and kick your ass." The voice chuckled before replying, "I very much doubt that. But nonetheless I will introduce myself." The wind suddenly picked up and the mist swirled around her before moving away and concentrating into a twister in front of her, returning her visibility of her surroundings. She soon discovered she was right back where she had started before the twister dissipated, revealing a shadowy figure with the deepest blue eyes she had ever seen. He was easily taller than her, standing at a towering 6 feet or about 182 centimeters, covered in a red-headed cloak with black flames around the edges. Underneath the cloak he was wearing a black form-fitting shirt and black pants and sandals that exposed his toes, along with a large scroll strapped across the small of his back. His facial features were hidden under a black mask that contoured to his face. All in all, his appearance gave him an air of mystery that Kasara found intriguing, but what he said next startled her. "Pleasure to finally make your acquaintance. I have been watching you for a while now, Nanjum Kasara, or should I say Valkyrie." On the outside her eyes narrowed, but inside she was extremely nervous. "Who is this guy? And how does he know who I am?" She narrowed further, "Who the hell are you?" Then she smiled to herself before settling into a stance, "No matter, it won't matter, since I probably won't remember it anyway after I kick your ass." She leaped forward, spinning her body to deliver a spin kick to the guy's head. However, instead of hitting his head, her foot was blocked before she leaped back. It wasn't that the guy had blocked her kick that surprised her. What surprised and caused her to fill up with fear was that he blocked not with his hand or arm but a single finger. Overcoming her sudden shock, she charges him and unleashes a flurry of her strongest kicks. However, much to her growing frustration and horror was that he blocked every single attack with the same finger he had used to stop her first kick. What was more was that he hadn't moved a step from his position since the one-sided fight had started. Kasara started to realize she was fighting someone light years apart from her in strength and was sorely outmatched, but her pride wouldn't allow her to just quit. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted when he made his move after blocking one of her attacks. His hand moved so quickly that it simply appeared before the finger that had been an iron wall against her kicks. He flicked her against the forehead and sent her flying backward several yards before hitting a fence and landing on her ass. Her head was spinning and she saw stars for a couple of minutes before she managed to shakily get her feet and grab hold of the fence. She then noticed that the unknown fighter was standing 5 feet away. He calmly addressed the stunned young woman. "Are you finished yet, or do I have to show you the difference in our strength again?" She glared at him before answering, "What do you want from me?" The man continued. "I have come merely to offer you a path." Kasara stopped glaring and adopted a questioning expression. "I'm listening." The man's brilliant blue eyes seemed to smile at her. "I am here to offer you a chance to learn the ways of a true warrior and give you the strength to accomplish your goals and dreams, whatever they happen to be, as my disciple. What will you gain fighting in that gang if it will make you weaker? So Nanjum Kasara, what do you say?" Kasara was shocked. This guy suddenly appears out of nowhere and defeats her using only his finger, and now he wants her to become his disciple. Something didn't add up. "Why are you offering this to me while there are others? And just who the hell are you anyway?" The man paused for a moment before replying, "Because I have been watching you for several days and I have come to conclude that you have the potential to become a great warrior. It is also because you have the qualities of a very strong and passionate young woman that will go far in this world." She was surprised, speechless. Many guys looked down on her as a martial artist because she was a woman, but this guy had not only acknowledged her strength, but also made it clear that in no way did her gender make her weaker than any male martial artist. He continued saying, "Plus I am not going to teach you a style or something like that. I will show you a new path and the others will not do as you will. Believe me, I know." Kasara now had a newfound respect for this man with the sapphire eyes. He pulled out a folded sheet of paper and held it out to her. She took it and looked at it a moment before turning her attention back to him. "What's this?" He pointed to the note. "That is the address where you find me if you decide to accept my offer. I eagerly await your response." He turned and began to walk away. He heard her voice call out, "Wait. You still haven't told me who you are." He tilted his head toward her without turning around, allowing her only to see the left side of his face. "I am Rikudou Sannin. However you can simply call me." He smiled even if she couldn't see it, she felt it. "Rikudou for now, but if I am going to teach you and train you, then I will tell you my real name." Suddenly the man now known as Rikudou, much to Kasara's surprise and amazement, disappeared into thin air right before her eyes in a column of furiously spinning wind she could feel from her position, and as suddenly as it appeared the wind vanished along with Naruto. She looked around in every direction in case her eyes were deceiving her, but saw no sign of the man. She then looked down at the address he had given her and thought about what to do next. 1 week later. It had taken several days for Kasara to come to a decision. In the end she saw that as things were going she was getting no closer to meeting with the great sage Fist, the martial arts master all the fists of Ragnarok wanted to receive training from, but only the first fist, Odin had ever received. She decided to take Rikudou up on his offer and become his disciple. She told the others that she was leaving for a while to train. They were surprised but accepted it, and after packing up her stuff, she set off for the address written by Rikudou. After taking a cab out of the city and a very long trek up a mountain then down and finally up again, she found herself on the top of another mountain and in front of an old Buddhist temple converted into a private residence. She approached a massive gate with a lifelike statue of a vicious ten-tailed kitsune demon on top of the gate. Below it was a sign with the word JK by no kitsune in red blood kanji. She swallowed and used one of the brass rings to knock several times. The gate opened from the inside. She entered thinking there was someone on the inside waiting for her only to find herself alone. As she was trying to figure out who let her in, she heard the voice of Rikudou from behind her. "So have you made your decision?" She turned around swiftly and found Rikudou standing at the foot of the stairs leading up to the main part of the temple. He was wearing a black guy complete with black khakis and sandals. Kasara recovered from her surprise at his sudden appearance and bowed respectively. "I want to become stronger and prove that just because I'm a woman doesn't make me weaker than a man. I accept your offer and wish to become your disciple and promise to be one of the best students you'll ever have," Rikudou shishma. Naruto smiled, she was just like him when he was younger. Wanting to be acknowledged and respected and willing to work hard to show others what they were made of. "Then let us get started. Are you ready to begin?" Kasara lifted her head and a determined look came to her eyes. "Hi, Shisho." He nodded and gestured to the stairs. "Then follow me. And congratulations. You have just taken your first step into a great new world." He started to climb the stairs with Kasara following not far behind her new master with her bags. For the first time she started to get excited and smiled as she unknowingly started on her way to becoming the first to learn the deadly and mysterious arts of the shinobi. Naruto smiled, she will do great and will be even greater. Amik. Page Bunshin was following Sakura-san towards the hospital. What she did not know is that a couple of thugs were waiting for any person to come through and they would rob them. Bunshin saw this and used his ninja speed to tackle 2 thugs and vanish. Sakura-san felt a strong wind blowing and closed her eyes so she didn't see anything. Naruto had taken the knocked out criminals to a nearby police station and returned to tailing Sakura-san. The cage Bunshin to her civilian clothes and went back to follow her. As she was going through an alley, an angry stray dog was about to attack her from behind. But it froze in its place when it felt a large killing intent aimed at it. It looked behind it and saw a man, not a god in power, walking down the same alley not even looking at it. It was scared stiff, the god as he passed by saw it scared, kneed down and started to pet it. The dog looked at the man, and the man's hands glowed in a light green aura and healed the animal. The animal just barked in appreciation and left. Naruto looked at where the dog was and said, "Strange dog," and went on his way. Sakura-san reached what looked like a hospital, and Naruto followed her in. The nurses at the counter called out to him. He used his Shibuku Rinnegan on them, hypnotizing and silencing them. He turned back to follow Sakura-san to a child's room in the ICU section of the hospital. He saw Sakura-san sitting at the side of the table holding her daughter's hand and crying. Her daughter had the same brown hair as her mother and had freckles on her tiny pale face, and she was about 10 to 11 years old. She said to her, "Don't worry dear, mommy is here and I have good news to you, will get better soon." A kind man said he will do his best to help us, and I believe him. Naruto saw this and felt his heart breaking into pieces, so he knocked at the door and entered the room. Sakura-san was surprised as she didn't have any family or any person to visit her daughter. She looked towards the visitor wiping her eyes and saw a very tall blonde young man with the bluest eyes she had ever seen. She thought he was a foreign doctor here in the hospital. She was surprised when he spoke in Japanese and said, "Excuse me, are you by any chance Sakura-san?" She was scared and thought he was with the Yakuza and wanted to kill her and daughter. She shakes and was about to scream, but the blonde man silenced her with his hand on her mouth. He said, "Oi. I am here to help you. Remember the man named Sasuke, he is a friend of mine and asked me to help you and your daughter. So I came and you tried to scream. What the hell? Listen, I will let go of you if you promise to be quiet. I don't want to bring the police here for nothing, you know." Sakura-san nodded and he let her go and said to her, "I am not going to harm you or your child, okay? You want her better, right?" She nodded again and walked to the left side of the bed of the comatose little girl. He was standing right next to her head. He turned to the mother who was sitting in the same place as before and said, "This may be a bit strange, but don't worry, okay?" He nodded weakly as she accepted what he said. The blonde man lifted both hands over the little girl's head and stomach. His eyes changed as his hands started to glow a golden-like light and a golden aura formed around them. He took a deep breath and the glow increased and became very bright. He slowly placed his glowing hand on her temple and the little girl's body jolted and almost jumped off the bed as the golden aura entered her body through head and abdomen. Naruto slowed the procedure and stared at the girl to see if she had started to heal. He found out that her body is getting accustomed to the Jikbai's chakra and started to reactivate her and chakra pathways and started to heal her entire body. Her whole body started to glow in the same aura as the blind man's did. Then she glows weaker and weaker until it disappears. The mother was shocked and looked at the man who was smiling and was about to ask something when she heard a familiar voice talking to her and saying, "Mommy." The woman had just hugged her long asleep daughter and started to cry saying thank you over and over again. The man just grinned and scratched his nose as he was not used to this situation. He was about to leave when the mother hugged him from behind causing him to freeze. He got out of her hug and turned to her smiling, "So I am done here as I promised. Plus I have to ask, what is your real name, Sakura-san?" He froze, but she remembered that he helped her. "My name is Tomoko, Takahiro Tomoko, and this is my daughter Takahiro Kitsumi." She was about to kneel and bow to Naruto who wouldn't have any of that and held her firm. "No need to bow to me, I have done nothing worth bowing," said Naruto in a firm voice. "Then how do I thank you for saving my daughter and me?" "Oh, I get it, if you want I can give you." Naruto cut her off by saying, "I am not doing this for any reward. I am doing this cause I can and it is the right thing to do. But if you want me to, I would like to ask you a favor." She smiled and said, "Of course, name it." He said, "When your daughter is fit and ready I will come and train her. Is that okay with you? As you can see I am a master and I will have her be my disciple in my arts." The mother was worried about trusting a total stranger with her daughter. Naruto, feeling her fears, said, "I will give you and her time to think about it. Here, take this, if you need me I will be there in a flash," he said with a smile. "All you have to do is throw it and I will come, okay? But please do so without anyone else seeing you. I only give this to my most trusted friends and my name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto and it is a pleasure meeting you Takahiro Tomoko-san and you too Kitsumi-chan." He then said, "Remember you did not see me, okay? Whenever you're ready please throw the kunai. Johnny." He then vanished in a puff of smoke. "Kat-chan, please don't tell anyone about this, okay?" Her daughter nodded and Tomoko-san hugged her. Tomoko-san was also amazed, but her child needed her, so she signed and turned to her baby before calling the doctors who were shocked as to how the little girl got out of her coma. Chapter 3. Teachings of the Sage. Naruto's Temple. It had taken an hour for Kasara to get fully settled into her new surroundings. After Naruto helped Kasara put her things away inside the room he had prepared for her in the temple's main living quarters, he showed her around the grounds where she would be training. To say she was impressed with the place had been an understatement. Naruto had converted some of the areas around the temple into training grounds and others had additions for comfort and fun. Behind the temple was the largest training zone that she wasn't allowed to go in before Naruto thought she was ready because unbeknownst to her, Naruto had turned it into an almost identical version of Konoha's Dionjiki Nenjutsu, also known as Shinomori, by filling it with dangerous flora, fauna, and animals found in this world. Along with some species of all trees from his world that he had sealed into scrolls and released into the enclosure. He used Mokuton ninjutsu to create the forest and to thicken the forest surrounding the temple and on the mountains. He did this in order to make the forest stronger and harder to penetrate after seeing those masters in the Rimzenpaku. He also had seals all over the mountains and forest to protect and conceal the temple and its occupant signatures from outsiders. Plus there was Yunjutsu Fu and Hiraishin no Jutsu Shiki. Needless to say he warned her that if she went in the Shinomori without being ready she would most likely die. Kasara, seeing that he was serious, gulped and nodded before moving on. On the west wing of the temple, Naruto had remodeled the place and turned into an exact duplicate of the arena Konoha used for Chunin exam preliminaries. They didn't stop long before moving on to the east wing. This section of the temple was the second largest part of the property and wasn't modified too much by only removing a few key elements, made it a perfect place for certain types of training or a place to relax. It had a pond, a bridge, a large waterfall, a small kurasansui that looks like the same ji as a Rinzai Zen Buddhist temple located in Matsuo, Nishikan Ward, Kyoto, and a large wooden fenced-off outdoor onsen. The last three buildings of the temple aside from the living quarters was a Kasugazukuri Shinto shrine and a two-story building he had built to replace the pagoda he had knocked down to make room for what doubled as an archive, armory, and medical station. And finally, the largest building was the main temple which had been emptied and replaced as a dojo and lecture hall. But that was not what shocked Kasara speechless, that honor was given to a giant tree in the right side of the temple. It was the biggest tree she has ever seen in her short life, and it was taller than the temple, and it was sparkling as it was full of life and energy. She felt rather calm and peaceful near it. Kasara was a little overwhelmed by the place at first, thinking, just who is this ma? I have heard of crazy training methods before, but the way this place is set up is insane. After they had finished the tour, Naruto tossed a confused Kasara a package. Go to your room and change, there is a set of clothes in the package that are more suited to the kind of training we will be doing and won't be worn to shreds like your current attire. He turned toward the main temple. After you have changed, meet me in the main temple, where we will begin your training. Then he suddenly disappeared in a flash of inhuman speed, leaving Kasara alone with the package. She shook herself out of her stupor and quickly went back to her room to change. Time skip. 10 minutes later. It had taken a few minutes for Kasara to get used to her new outfit. At first she was suspicious, but later found that she was pleased by both its practicality and its aesthetically pleasing qualities. Her new ensemble consisted of a red overcoat with a hood, complete with a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretched from her neck down to her thighs, red form-fitting turtleneck muscle shirt over the mesh suit, and a dark red miniskirt, as well as a red bandana and metal arm and shin guards with black mesh embedded stockings. When she finally arrived in the main temple, Naruto was sitting in the middle of the room with his back to her. She was about to announce her presence before his voice interrupted her train of thought. I trust the clothes were to your liking. She blinked. How did he know I was here? She shook her head before answering. Why, yes, they were great, thank you. But how did you know my measurements? She heard him chuckle before he replied. I deduced them from what I saw of the stature, weight, frame and overall body structure. She stared. He can learn all that just from looking at someone once. She was snapped back to reality when she heard her master's voice. Eventually you'll begin to develop the ability to analyze a person's body and be able to pick out certain things about them and the way they fight. He startled her slightly when he leaped up from where he was sitting before landing in front of her. She then saw that he wasn't sitting on a cushion as she had thought, but a stone slab balanced on a thin spike that should have been impossible to balance on without toppling over. She looked from him to the slab in disbelief. He gave her a smile from behind his mask and decided to answer her unasked question. Balance is crucial in any sort of combat, along with several other applications, and I have trained every day to improve mine to the point where it comes without conscious thought. He placed a hand on her shoulder. One day, you will also be able to do these things and much more. But the path to getting there isn't easy, and there will be many challenges ahead. He removed his hand from her shoulder and turned his back to her. So Kasara Nanjo, are you ready for the toughest training you'll ever have? Are you ready to become truly strong? Kasara felt a serious atmosphere and knew that whatever path she took now would set the course of her destiny. Kasara went over everything in her life that had brought her to this moment, and her choice was clear. Kasara's face was set in determination, then grinned savagely as announced her decision. I'm ready, master. I will take this training and prove to the world that just because I'm a woman does mean I can't kick their ass and make them acknowledge me as the greatest. He turned his head toward her and grinned even more savagely than her. Good, welcome to the shinobi life. Then let us begin. Time skip. 3 months later. It had been 9 weeks since Naruto had taken Kasara under his wing. He didn't introduce her to chakra immediately for that he felt would have to wait until she learned the fundamentals of being a shinobi, as well as informing her that he would also be teaching her things outside of just fighting, such as literature, calligraphy, mathematics, science, geography, and other such areas. He had also contacted her parents over the phone and informed them they wouldn't have to worry about her schooling, for he would make she wasn't going to miss out on her education. Kasara hadn't been thrilled with it at first, but after a while she learned that Naruto wouldn't have been bothering with it if he thought it wasn't useful. Once he started her lessons, she found that it wasn't as bad as her master would always find ways to make the lessons more enjoyable. Even something as boring as advanced algebra was less boring through her master's method of teaching. He also worked on teaching her proper manners and etiquette. After a while he had broken her of her bad habits and taught her more self-control that allowed her to keep her calm and focused. This allowed her to channel her powerful emotions positively into training and achieving her goals instead of losing her temper, which could cause her to lose focus and make more mistakes. Naruto also had her starting to eat right as she was slightly stunted in growth like he had been and sneaked in some crushed up nutrient pills into her food in order to help her body achieve its required growth. After several weeks on such a diet her body had grown and flourished. Her skin had a radiant glow about it, her hair was showing to be giving off a healthy, lustrous shine. She had also allowed it to grow out over the past 3 months and now flowed down all the way to her lower back. She grew taller, now reaching a height of 170 centimeters. Her body had also filled out to give the young woman a quite curvaceous, well-endowed, and well-toned body structure that was very pleasing to the eye. He managed to rid her of her problem about using weapons. He quickly ended that foolishness right then and there by demonstrating her vulnerability by using a combination of his kunai, shuriken, and weapons. After she had nearly been killed several times if not for him holding back, he explained that the weapons didn't make one a warrior, but it was the warrior that made the weapon. That a weapon is merely an extension of one's body and that she didn't have to specialize in weapons in order to use them. In the end, she saw how foolish she was being and learned how to use kunai, shuriken, shinobi sen, as well as Hatsuen Dan and Senkan. Naruto had her practice until he was sure she could hit the bullseye about 10 of 10 times on every session. He had placed weights on her body and gave her strict physical training regimes that bordered on torturous in order to increase her natural speed and strength to the highest they could be before he taught her to use chakra and he had her sit on a stone tile on top of a spike until she learned to keep herself absolutely still and give herself better balance. She may not have been at Rock Lee's level, but her body was now as conditioned to the level of an Olympic athlete. After that, Naruto had decided she was sufficiently brought up to speed in her academic, fundamental strength, and other areas. He now believed she was ready for the next step her training. They were now in the east wing of the temple with Kasara sitting opposite Naruto next to one of the trees, listening as he began the lesson. First, before we begin let me say that I am proud of how far you've come and that you have been one of the best students that I've ever had the pleasure of instructing. Kasara smiled as she looked down and blushed slightly in embarrassment toward his praise. In the past 3 months she had come to value her master's opinion of her highly and he was now one of the few people she respected and cared for most. Thank you Shisho. He continues, also I have made you a promise that when you did I would tell you my real name. Kasara held her breath, which is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the nickname Rikudou Sannin, and you can call me Naruto Shishim, or Shishim. She was about to ask about the nickname part when he held his hand and said that is a story for another time, Kasara-chan. She blushed and Naruto chuckled before continuing, well now that we have that out of the way let us begin the lesson. He rose from his sitting position and gestured her to rise as well. Naruto then walked a few steps before stopping at one of the trees. What you see and learn here today you must promise to never tell anyone about unless you have my express permission. Talk among yourself with someone who already knows like a future fellow disciple or until after your training is complete and you start training disciples of your own. Kasara was curious but gave her promise. So what is it you're going to teach me exactly, Shishim? Naruto's eyes held a fire that danced within those sapphire orbs. Today you learn how to harness the energy that is used by a true shinobi. Today you will learn the ways of chakra. Kasara was confused. Chakra? Naruto nodded and began his explanation in detail. Chakra is the energy that is essential to perform even the most basic of shinobi techniques. It is a mixture of the physical energy present in every cell of the body and the spiritual energy gained from exercise and experience. Kasara was now listening with ever-increasing curiosity, she had never heard of anything like what he was describing as Naruto continued, once mixed, it can be channeled through the chakra circulatory system, which is to chakra as the regular circulatory system is to blood, to any of the 361 chakra points called tenketsu in the body. Naruto looked at Kasara's confused look but continued to elaborate. Through the use of various methods, the most common of which is hand seals, a shinobi can manipulate the chakra in their body to create an effect that would not be possible otherwise. Kasara looked at her master in inquiry and asked. Like what? Naruto grinned. You wouldn't believe me if I told you so I think it is best that show you. Kasara watched her master form some sort of sign with his hands. Then what she saw something happening as Naruto's frame was suddenly surrounded by a pulsing blue aura of energy. Naruto then explained further to his disciple. What you are seeing is chakra that I have channeled through my body for you to see. For normally chakra is not visible to the naked eye. However if someone possesses a strong enough or high enough chakra it can become visible to the eye. He then lowered his chakra and the blue aura faded from Kasara's sight. After that Naruto placed his foot on the tree before she could ask what he was doing, he placed his other foot on the tree and began to climb up the tree without needing anything holding him in place. And if that wasn't shocking enough, she watched with ever-widening eyes as he reached a tree branch and defied the laws of gravity by continuing to walk until he was completely upside down, watching her stunned and astonished look from his position above her. Naruto saw her expression and started to chuckle. Kisara shook her head and was starting to get annoyed. What are you laughing about? I don't see anything funny about this. It isn't every day a person learns that their sensei can defy the freaking laws of gravity. Naruto suppressed his chuckling and an upside-down smile through the mask. Sorry, it just you had the same expression I had when I saw this technique performed for the first time by my first master. I and my fellow disciples didn't think it was these kind of things were possible ourselves until Kakashi-sensei did as I have just done with you. He jumped down and gave her an apologetic look. Forgive me if I frightened you, Kisara. Kisara regained her self-control at the revelation. She didn't know much about her master's past and her anger dissipated. Although, the fact was she just couldn't stay mad at the man she called master, he had done too much for her to stay mad at him for long. No, it is I who am sorry, Shishma. I know why you did it now. If you had told me before that you could walk on walls before you showed me, I probably would have thought you were nuts. She bowed her head. Please continue, Shisho, I am ready to proceed. Naruto was silently proud of how well she was taking it and gave her a pat on the shoulder as she raised her head. Alright, but I'll warn you. You're in for quite a few surprises. She nodded, her eyes telling him to go on with the lesson. Naruto then walked over to the edge of the koi pond and began again from where they had left off. Well, now that you have seen one of the many feats chakra can perform, I can tell you how shinobi use it to fight, train, and survive. He motioned for her to come closer. Now, as you have seen, chakra can be used to attach yourself to almost any kind of surface. However, what you saw is child's play in comparison to what chakra is capable of. The things I left out earlier in the lesson were that once one learns to harness this energy, they are capable of doing almost anything, as long as they have both the skill and knowledge to use it correctly. Naruto paused and watched his student as waited for this new info sink in. Kisara was surprised at what her master was implying about the extent of which chakra could be used. Anything? Like what? Naruto grinned as saw her curiosity return with a vengeance. Yes, anything. As I said earlier, chakra can be manipulated to create effects that would not be possible otherwise. You already saw me walk up the tree without using any support, but the chakra in my feet, along with it, a shinobi can use chakra to walk on water, enhance strength and speed to inhuman levels, create illusions in the minds of others, control the elements of nature, create copies of yourself. Transform your body into the form of objects, animals, and even other people, bend time and space, and it even gives us the power to resurrect the dead in some cases. Kisara's head was spinning from what he had just told her. He had had her at walking on water. Just who was her master and where did he learn all this from? She felt a hand placed on her shoulder and looked to see her master giving her a masked, understanding smile. Don't worry, it all right now. You'll eventually be able to do most of the things I mentioned in time anyway, so it's best to focus on the present. She nodded and realized just how fortunate she was to have been chosen as Naruto's first disciple. She was going to be learning how to do things that you only hear about in stories. She then became excited when she thought about all the possibilities and it showed. She turned to her master. Well, what are we waiting for, Shishma? Let's do this. Her excitement was infectious as Naruto grin returned. He couldn't wait to see the looks on the masters at Remsenpaku and that organization Yami's faces when she defeats all their disciples. It would be most interesting to see indeed. Well then, let us begin. To begin learning to mold and manipulate chakra, you'll have to strip, screamed Kisara. Why yes, Kisara-chan. But not completely, just your top. I have to draw seals as people here have little to no chakra. Therefore, I have to jump-start your chakra gates, which are located in 8 exact parts of the human body. Most people cannot use chakra because it can only be feel and used at the tender age of 4 years old, and the older the person the less likely he or she could feel, let only use chakra. He stopped and looked at Kisara as she nodded and he continued, so as you can plainly see, even if you're a master martial artist, you will not be able to use chakra ever. But if you try before you reach the age of 20, you might have a slight chance of gaining the ability to use chakra. He took a breath and looked at her and said, are you sure you want to unlock your chakra? It is a dangerous procedure and it will of course be irreversible. So I ask you again, Nanjum Kisara, do you solemnly swear to safeguard, maintain, respect and obey me and my teachings in the shinobi arts as your Shishman master? He took out a weird kunai with 3 blades instead of 1 and a much thicker handle, which is thicker than normal, with what looks like writing on the handle itself. Kisara was flabbergasted as this was not a small deal. She will have to forever give her life and loyalty to her Shishman and his arts, but he will teach her all of his art to make her extremely powerful. He already helped her and he is starting to trust her. He then said while looking into her eyes, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. As I will still teach you even if you refuse to take the oath and you will still live your life." She looked down to the ground as she thought hard. She nodded and said, "Shishim, I swear that I will safeguard, maintain, respect and obey you in the shinobi arts you will teach me." She kneed down on one knee and lowered her head in respect to her Shishim. He kneed as well and placed his hands on her shoulders and smiled at her from behind his mask. "Okay, before we start with the ritual, I would like you to follow me the ritual chamber," he said in a matter-of-fact voice. She nodded and followed him as he walked to a dark candle-lit room with a complex array of writings in the shape of a spiral on the floor. He told her to in the center of the array circle and stay still. He told her to sit still as he was going to start working on her seal. She sat in a cross-legged posture and he sat behind and took out a red scroll, opened it and cut his thumb and applied the bleeding digit on the scroll. The scroll released a poof sound and white smoke, revealing Japanese calligraphy said. He used the kunai in his to cut his hand again as the first wound had already healed. He dropped a few drops of his blood in the ink as to make the seal particularly strong so he could sense her signature over great distances. He handled the ink plate, saturated his chakra into the ink, making the ink glow. He dipped the brush and said calmly told her, "I will have to give you a symbol of my trust. This will be permanent unlike the fuin used for restoring the use of chakra. Remove your shirt and show me your arm." She did as he asked and gave him her arm. He showed her the jutsu shiki on the Hiraishin kunai asked her, "I will give you this jutsu shiki in the form of a painless tattoo. I will enlighten you on how to use it later. Where do you want this jutsu shiki placed?" She nodded and said, "If you don't mind Shishim, I would like the jutsu shiki tattoo starting from the nape of my neck, drawn vertically down please." Her master nodded as he understood and she tied her long red hair into a bun to get it out of the way. Her Shishim took the brush and dipped into the particular ink. He started to draw the seals starting from the central point of her nape about 2 centimeters below her nape's hairline. She could feel his warm strokes as the brush slid downwards. She felt a warm tingling sensation seeped from the ink on her body as her Shishim continued his work. 5 minutes later he finished and said, "Don't move okay, as I will anchor the seal now. You might feel a bit weird okay?" She gave him a small nod as to not ruin the seal on her neck. He stood and placed his hand in a Hitsuji seal and said fuin. Kasara felt the seal warm up suddenly and as if it was joining or fusing with her skin. "Okay, it is done. Kasara-chan, lay down on your back, please." She did as he said and lay on her back. He walked to where her head was laying and kneeled down and said, "I am about to start with the chakra activation, so you will feel very unusual as your body will change to accept the chakra. You even feel pain as your body adjusts to the power and it will refine and correct the physiological and biological errors such as your height, muscle tone etc. So are you ready?" She said in a loud and strong voice, "Yes Shishma, I am ready to go." He said, "Okay then let's start." Naruto's hands began to glow a golden flame like aura that grew brighter and became a roaring golden flame. He parted his hands and placed both his intended targets, which seemed to be Kasara's head and abdomen. He placed them at the same time causing Kasara's body to flinch as foreign energy flow into her body. Her Shishma had a look of utter concentration as left hand moved from her temple to her chest, where her heart is located and back to her head. His right hand moved to the south as it went to her legs and feet and moved it back to her chest. He removed his hands off her body and placed both of them on her crown and went down to her toes. Then he finally used his power to make her body jerk a bit as her body absorbed and circulated his chakra. Kasara felt her body melting in the sensation of power and felt little tingles as her muscles and bones grew and thickened as they redefined themselves. Her body became stronger and she felt it pulsing with power. Naruto was using his Shibuku Rinnegan to see her chakra pathways throb, her Tenketsu, and start to create her own chakra. This chakra was fixing her body so to speak as her height and body shape changed to a much more womanly body. As her breast increased in size and her hips widened and became taller and her face became a bit more defined. The chakra finished its work and began to mix and fuse with her own, making it even more powerful. She felt awesome like she was born again and she could felt energy about to burst from her physique. Congratulations Nanjum Kasara and stand as you are reborn as Riketsu Nico. He took out a white mask with blue flame-like patterns that looks like demonic cat's face and a red cloth hit I-8 with the symbol Jbai with 10 tails and presented it to her. This mask is used codename and your alter ego is a Kunoichi and is to be worn only in battle and on missions as to protect you and your family. Kasara bowed her head as she received her gifts from her Shishma while saying, "Thank you Shishma. I will honor your gift by wearing them with pride." "Well said Kasara-chan, and now your real training will begin." Kukikuku as he laughed evilly with his eyes shining. Kasara shivered as she saw her Shishma laughed and said, "Oh shit, I am so screwed." Chapter 4. Student of the Sage. The eastern part of Tokyo. Kasara was walking alongside her master as they strolled back into town after weeks and months of training, something Kasara could only describe as her own personal level of hell. After Naruto had determined she could control her chakra to a level he found sufficient, completing both the tree climbing and water walking exercises and mastering them, he had kicked her training into overdrive. He had Kasara take off her weights and placed prayer beads on her limbs before using a technique Jiraiya had once used on him, though slightly altered, and called Kenjutsu. Yanshitai Kankinfukin. It was a sealing technique that increased the weight of the beads exponentially, weighing down Kasara's limbs. Naruto's version of the technique also increased the weight of the beads as their chakra levels grew, making moving with them much harder than when she was just wearing the weights. She had 25 pounds on each limb currently, which meant she had 100 pounds of extra weight on. Naruto was thinking of adding a weighted belt or something to increase her core strength, but because she is a female, her body will react negatively to the weight, so he might think of something else later on. Nevertheless, he was happy with her flexibility and reflexes, which were that of a cat. Furthermore, she trained to point she fall on her hands and feet on reflex too. Despite this however, Kasara's strength and speed had thoroughly and significantly increased, by how much exactly she didn't know, as every time she had one of her evening spars with her master in Taijutsu, it didn't seem as though she was making any progress at all. When Naruto overheard this when she was talking to herself in her room one night after training, the next day instead of sparring with her like they usually did he was stood next to a large container of some kind, said container was shaking sliding, which caused Kasara to get a bad feeling about what was about to happen to her. Her instincts were not wrong as Naruto gave her a dangerous-looking smile behind his mask, with his eyes gleaming evilly, before he pulled out a remote and pressed one of the buttons on the keypad that opened the container door. Which revealed, much to Kasara's horror, a very large, very pissed-off tiger, the same species that lived in Konoha's Forest of Death he had placed in the forest training ground behind the temple. She then was forced to fight for her life against the tiger as her master watched while slurping down his ramen while keeping her from seeing under his mask. It took her 30 minutes to beat the tiger, much to her surprise it was almost easy. After realizing that even if she couldn't land a blow on her master, she had improved beyond what others her age had in the amount of time she spent training with Naruto, and that was only in Taijutsu. Naruto's temple. In the morning they would work on ninjutsu. Naruto had taught Kasara how to perform the techniques Naruto had learned at the Shinobi Academy first, the Henjin no Jutsu, Bunshin no Jutsu, and Kawarimi no Jutsu. He also taught her the Nawanuke no Jutsu and other basic shinobi skills such as tracking, covering your tracks, hiding in plain sight, and how to enhance her senses using chakra. When he was satisfied she could perform these techniques and skills flawlessly he moved her on to more advanced techniques. Kasara found these techniques both strange and exciting at the same time. Strange because a few weeks ago if someone had said that people could walk on water and transform themselves into objects or other people, she would said you were crazy. Excited because she was certain no one outside her and Naruto knew how to do these kinds of things. After learning the basic ninjutsu, Naruto had taught her to use some of the more advanced techniques, such as Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, Shuriken no Jutsu, and Shunshin no Jutsu. While these were all D-rank techniques, except the Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, they were quite useful, and most ninja learned them earlier in their lives, maybe even during their time at the academy. Naruto was impressed with how far she had gotten in her training and how hard she worked. He informed his student that if she kept up the hard work and dedication to her training, one day he would teach her one of the more advanced techniques when he felt she was ready. Needless to say this motivated Kasara to train harder with the promise of learning something new that was certain to be powerful. All in all her abilities were on par with a mid-level genin after only 5 months of training. If Naruto didn't know any better he would said that he had found a genius, but he knew that it was her hard work and drive to succeed that had gotten her this far, and for that he was proud of his disciple. Kasara had also learned a few things about her master during the last 4 months. She had known he was young, but was surprised to learn that he was somewhere around Freya's age or slightly older. This did not change that fact that she admired him, if anything it caused her admiration for her teacher to grow and wished to one day become a master just like him. However, he had many secrets too, which made him seem even cooler than he already is. Kasara had also found out that her master was a bottomless pit, the average amount of food he ate a day was enough to feed 3 people, and that he always carried a small book on his person called Dokinjininden. During all their time together, Naruto hadn't shown his face even once. Kasara tried everything she could think of to force him to take off his mask. He didn't even take off the thing when he ate. Naruto was quite amused by these attempts to unmask him, as it reminded him of all the times he, Sasuke, and Sakura had tried to do the same to their teacher, Kakashi. When it came to his eating with a mask on it was particularly amusing, since he had once wondered how Kakashi was able to do it, only to find out later that the answer was actually quite simple. What Kasara didn't know was that Naruto had another mask under the first with a slit where his mouth was and ate through it before replacing the other mask over it, giving the illusion that he had never taken off the mask. He had learned this trick from Kakashi while on a mission that required Naruto to wear the same kind of mask and hadn't known how to eat without taking it off and revealing his identity to their enemy. Kakashi hadn't been happy about telling him this but taught him the secret anyway. Kasara eventually gave up as she came to conclusion that he would show her his face only when he felt like it and there nothing she could do to make him. After the futility of her efforts was revealed, she got back to training and hadn't tried anything since, even though the urge to do was tempting, even if it was pointless. Yokohama Chinatown. The day was the first day that he and Kasara had left the temple since she had arrived there. He had been keeping up with current events in the city, using the cage bunchen he had placed in every corner of the city. He'd seen the fights between that Kenichi boy and the Ragnarok gang. The kid reminded him a lot of Rock Lee, a definite genius of hard work, and he kept getting better under his master's harsh but effective training methods, but unlike Rock Lee, he did not have the determination and the strength of his will, as Kenichi would rather run than fight to protect himself. Naruto and Kasara were currently strolling through Chinatown. Kasara did not know it, but Naruto had brought her here to allow her to gain actual combat experience and protect a possible fellow disciple. He had overheard a few conversations from various thugs who worked for the Chinese triad that a man named Masajetsu, who Naruto learned was the master of Hermit, the sixth fist of the Ragnarok gang and brother of Rimzenpaku master Ma Kensei, was in town and Kensei was meeting with his uncle in Chinatown with his student Kenichi. Naruto and Kasara entered the Imperial Wrath Chinese restaurant that was owned by Ma Kensei's uncle after the duo unbeknownst to Kasara and Kenichi. Kensei however was aware that someone was following them, although he had no idea who, but decided to leave it be until he determined what they were after and knew at least one of them was aware he knew of their presence. He turned his mind away from them and focused on his uncle, who had also noticed Naruto and Kasara, but let it be after a quick look from Kensei which Kenichi missed. Choosing to ignore them for now, they proceeded to talk about the reason they came here. "I'd figured you'd show your face sooner or later. Kensei. And you brought young Kenichi as well." He showed them to a secluded table not far from where Naruto and Kasara were and motioned to the food brought out by the waiters earlier. Kenichi's eyes watered and a dopey smile appeared on his face. "Wow, feast. I'm in heaven." The Kubi smiled kindly toward Kenichi. "Eat as much as you like." Kenichi turned to the Chinese elder. "You're a good man. Not bald at all." Across the room Naruto's sweat dropped as Hakubi replied. "Thank you." Kenichi turned back to the food as he declared. "Itadakimasu." He then grabbed the nearest bowl of food and started unceremoniously scarfing it down like a man who hadn't eaten in weeks, which in his case probably was true, considering how his masters would always steal the food from his plate if he let his guard down for even a second when they had dinner at the dojo. While Kenichi was stuffing his face, Hakubi and Kensei didn't eat and went straight to business. "Tell me, Kensei, I know two reasons you might have come here today, so which is it? Are you looking for Sujetsu?" Naruto, from his position, noticed Kensei's face take on a small sigh as he replied. "Yes. It's true that he's in the country then." Kenichi stopped eating as he stared at Kensei as the conversation continued. "Yes." Kensei smiled to himself. "Alright then, I suppose that I'll have to have a little chat with him." Hakubi gave him a look behind his glasses. "The chat, huh? You really think that's going to help?" Kenichi decided to speak at last, having heard the name before. "Who is this Sujetsu guy?" Kensei closed his eyes as he filled in the blanks of Kenichi's knowledge. "Masajetsu, otherwise also known as my big brother." Over at his table Naruto noted Kensei's demeanor when he spoke of his brother. It was almost like Naruto was seeing himself years ago when he had chased after Sasuke, before he finally managed to free him from the manipulation of Madara. The conversation strayed into facts he already knew, so he tuned out for a moment to address Kasara. "Kasara?" She looked up from her meal. "Yes, Shishim." Naruto jerked his head over toward the other's table. When Kasara saw Kenichi, she was surprised and then excited. She could follow him to where that blonde bimbo was and finally get back at her for beating her before. But she managed to regain her composure like she was taught when she saw her master looking at her intently before he spoke. "What are you going to do, Kasara?" She knew that tone, it was the tone he used whenever he was testing her, which was exactly what this was, a test. She knew it best to answer honestly, as he could always seem to tell somehow when she was lying about something. "Well, I was planning on following him so he could take me to that arrogant Ushijichi and teach her what it's like to feel humiliated. But that's not what you brought us here for, is it, Shishima? So I will wait until I feel the time is right to challenge her for now." Naruto nodded, proud of his student's show of honesty and maturity. "You're right, that isn't what I brought us here for, and I'm glad you noticed it." He subtly nodded over toward the other's table. "What I want is for you to make sure those kids over there don't get themselves killed." That is the task I brought you here for. She turned her eyes toward Kenichi and Kensei's table, then gained a look of confusion. Kids? Don't you mean kid? The only kid over there that I can see is Shirahama. Naruto smiled as he held up 3 fingers, then lowered each one slowly. When he finished his countdown, a crash echoed throughout the restaurant. Basara turned toward the other table to see a young black-haired girl in a form-fitting Chinese dress that had broken the table. Kensei freaked out for a moment seeing it was his daughter before she tried and failed to capture him. Naruto, seeing Kensei about to make his exit, sat up. I'll find you later. I have some business with that boy's master. Remember, don't let them know you're following them unless you have to, and make sure they don't die. Basara bowed her head as her face became determined. Hi, Shishim. I won't let you down. Naruto nodded and disappeared in a cloud of smoke just as Kensei leaped out the door and into the streets. Unknown alley, Yokohama Chinatown. Kensei Pav. Kensei had noticed when he ditched his disciple with his daughter, he was still being followed by the hooded stranger. After he was a few blocks away from his uncle Hakubi's, Kensei decided to confront the mysterious figure. But before Kensei could call him out, a voice emanated from the darkness. Hanbanwa, Ma Kensei. Kensei's eyes shifted around the alley trying to find the source of the voice, but to no avail. And who might you be? You've been tailing me and my disciple all night, yet you approach me now. Which tells me either you want to speak to me, fight me, or you're looking for my brother. So which is it? The voice chuckled, you're perceptive and to the point. I'm cool with that. I think it's about time I reveal myself. Then, before Kensei's eyes, a something started to rise from the moonlit pavement. It started with a hooded head, followed quickly by a cloaked torso, and then finally, after just a few seconds, the stranger that had been following him fully emerged from the pavement. Kensei blinked several times, what he had just seen was physically impossible. But he had seen it happen before his very eyes and didn't catch anything that would suggest this was some clever illusion. So the only choice left was that the man really did just rise from the pavement like some sort of ghost. Then, he remembered his uncle's visit to Rimzenpaku a few months ago. According to the local street gangs, the statements made by the Triad bodyguards is that the man who attacked their boss possesses abilities that they described as superhuman or just supernatural. Kensei evaluated what he saw against his uncle had told them and was certain this man was the one his uncle spoke of. So the rumors about him weren't just superstition after all. Naruto's sapphire eyes watched Kensei under his hood as the Kenpo master connected the dots. Judging from your expression, I'm guessing you've heard of me. Kensei nodded. Yes, though you still haven't told me why you're here, mister. Naruto gave a small bow. Uzumaki. Naruto, at your service. And as to why I'm here, well, let's just say I'm here to conduct a little test. Kensei's eyes narrowed. And what test would that be? You'll see soon enough. With an eye smile at the older man. Kensei closed his eyes. I see. When he opened his eyes, he was surprised to find that the cloaked young man had just vanished without him noticing. The Chinese master's features became determined before he took off in a burst of speed and resumed the search for his brother. He just hoped he could make it in time. While he searched, his mind went over his meeting with the mysterious master. What an interesting young man, just who are you, Uzumaki Naruto? Unknown rooftop near the Triad safe house, Chinatown, Naruto Pav. Naruto had just received the memories from the shadow clone he had sent to meet with Kensei. He had been following Kenichi, Renka and Kasara, who was tailing them without their knowing. They had reached the safe house after taking out a few out the lower level muscle. He could feel the presence of a powerful hatred inside the building, mostly likely Masagetsu. Now the test would begin. Stay strong, my disciple, for this fight shall be the true test of your resolve, as Naruto stated to no one. Inside the safe house, Chinatown, Kasara Pav. Kasara had followed the Kenichi kid and the Chinese girl as her master had instructed, though so far she didn't see why. She knew there was something off about the situation. Her master wouldn't have sent her to watch these two if he knew they could fight these people on their own. They had just entered the building, and Kasara watched them deal with some mafia guys the Chinese girl had been fighting in the elevator. Kasara had been running up the side of the building using the tree climbing technique her master had taught her. Then slipped in through an open window in a room close to the elevator and quickly used Henge no Jutsu to transform herself into a housefly. After that, she flew through a cracked door and attached herself to the hallway ceiling before changing back and watching her charges from above. Though the blood rushing to her head made her feel weird. I doubt I'll ever get used to this. How Shishim does it for several hours on end I'll never know. She watched from her perch as Shirahama acted like such a tool and chauvinist pig, which in turn made her want to beat him senseless, but she restrained herself like she had been taught to. She wasn't going to fail at the task she had been given just because she didn't like who she was guarding. She quieted her thoughts and focused on her mission. Basara watched as the girl called Renka turned to Kenichi with a dark look. Kenichi and Renka Pav. I can't let Uncle Sujetsu get away with what he's doing. He's disgracing the Ma family by dealing with the mafia. And I'm putting a stop to it." The Chinese girl turned and started walking away from Kenichi, who was looking between her and the downed mafia henchman, and began after her. "Wait. I'm coming with you." The girl stopped as she and Kisara both felt something coming. Renka turned to Kenichi and tackled him outway just in time as the wall beside them exploded outwards. Kenichi turned to Renka as they both looked up. "What was that?" Kenichi asked. Renka looked over to where the hole opened into the room next to it. "That was Uncle Masajetsu." The sound of a stomping footstep filled the hall. Kenichi and Renka's eyes looked into the smoke in apprehension of what was coming. The silhouette of a hulking man could be made out through the screen of dust and rock, and a powerful voice then pierced through the shroud. "I thought this one was supposed to be strong. What a disappointment." When the smoke cleared, the imposing figure of Masajetsu appeared. Renka took one look at her uncle and launched herself forward with a kick. "Masajetsu? You're through shaming our family." However, Sujetsu merely grabbed her foot mid-kick and slammed her into the wall, then pinned her there. "Interesting. That kick I'd recognize from anywhere. But I don't recognize you." Kenichi put an arm out in an attempt to reach Sujetsu. "Wait. Don't hurt her, she's Kensei-ma's daughter. She's your own niece." Sujetsu gave the young disciple an apathetic look. "I suppose I should have guessed that. But no matter who her father is, she attacked me as a martial artist, and besides, I said goodbye to my family a long time ago." Sujetsu then proceeded to begin crushing his niece under one of his secret palm techniques when suddenly a voice rang through the hall. "Then I guess they won't mind if I kick your ass." Sujetsu then felt something coming and was forced to let go of Renka to dodge a red blur that struck where he had been standing just moments before with enough force to rip up the concrete floor. A dust cloud filled the room and masked the unknown assailant from Sujetsu, who narrowed his eyes as he waited for the smoke to clear. Kenichi and Renka were also surprised by the sudden rescue and tried to see who it was that just saved the Chinese girl. The petite silhouette could be made out through the dust before revealing Kisara. Kenichi could not see her face clearly as she was wearing a white mask, but almost immediately blushed as he noticed that she was drop-dead gorgeous, even more than Musan. Renka, who could see her savior better than Kenichi, wondered where this girl in the cat mask had come from and why she had not noticed her before. Sujetsu was thinking along the same lines and asked with a gruff tone. "Who are you?" Iridide looked up at him with steely green eyes, one of the only things visible under her hood, which had a feline likeness, before she burst forward with impressive speed and launched a kick that was easily blocked by Sujetsu's forearm. "Your enemy?" Sujetsu glared, then pushed her back where she landed gracefully before taking a stance. The master's eyes narrowed and performed a variation of the standard Kenpo opening stance that signified his intent to completely destroy his opponent. Then both combatants launched forward in a burst of speed. Meanwhile, as the battle started, one of the mafia gang members escaped and went downstairs as no one noticed him. Kisara's Pav. The second the fight began, Kisara could tell two things about her opponent. One, this guy was a ruthless and brutal killer. And second, this guy was more skilled and experienced than her. Which meant she was fighting a master-level martial artist and she would have to give her all just to survive. Even so, I can't let him near the others. If I do, he'll kill them, and there is no ways in hell I'm letting that happen to them, not on my watch. I will not fail my master. Kisara filled with determination as both opponents leaped into the fray. Normal Pav. Insert. The Man Without Fear by Drowning Pool. I couldn't find a better song since this one is very good. To the bystanders, the two simply vanished and reappeared in a flurry of speed. Sujetsu was surprised at the girl's speed, but even so it was only enough to keep her from his deadly punch's reach. He could tell from her expression that she knew she was outmatched, but still willing to fight him despite that. It showed him she had a lot of courage, but courage wouldn't save her from him. He brought his foot next to his opponent's foot and sidestepped her as she launched a kick toward his head that came close to hitting him and shaved a few hairs from the side of his head. Then, he proceeded to launch an elbow attack to the vitals of his opponent's back, which would either cripple her or kill her by breaking her spinal cord. He was caught off guard when, instead of hitting his opponent's open back, his elbow went straight through her frame that vanished. Leaving him and their audience stunned for a moment before she reappeared behind him in midair to deliver a roundhouse kick. Sujetsu lifted his forearm to block it, but once more he met no resistance as her kick passed through his arm and she faded from sight again. Sujetsu's eyes widened when he heard her voice behind him, "Konoha Daisink." The Kenpo master turned around to find the real Kisara, who used a Kawarimi no Jutsu to escape Sujetsu's attack, then replace herself with a clone using Bunshin no Jutsu to throw him off guard. Then, she created another clone to distract him while she attacked from behind. When Sujetsu turned, he was caught with a concentrated spinning back kick to his chest with speed that not a single person in the room, except Sujetsu, could follow her movement. The blow smashed her enemy with surprising strength into a wall at the end of the hall. The Chinese master bounced off the structure from the force but landed with both feet as he quickly recovered from the unexpected attack. He frowned as he spat a glob of blood off to the side. She's stronger than she looks, she isn't at the level of master, so she's most likely someone's disciple. To even be able to land a hit on me is worthy of praise. Whoever trained this one did well. Too bad she chose to fight me. Such waste of potential. Impressive, you've drawn first blood. But that trick won't work twice. Kisara tensed up to fight but was caught off guard when Sujetsu suddenly vanished from sight at 3 times the speed he was moving earlier. He reappeared in front of her and delivered a powerful palm strike to her stomach that blasted her off her feet and sent her tumbling across the room toward Kenichi and a revived Renka. Kisara coughed up blood as she felt her inside scream in pain. So this is the power of a master. I guess I should have known better, the difference between our skills and power is significant. But I won't give up. Even if it kills me. To everyone's amazement, she started to struggle to her feet. Sujetsu gave her an apathetic look. You've got a lot of courage, girl, but I know that you can tell the difference between our skills. You've just signed your own death warrant. He vanished again as he used his speed to appear before her before she could defend herself. Uriru Banda. The bulky master came down with an open palm slap, striking towards the defenseless disciple. Kisara closed her eyes in anticipation. I am sorry, Shishma. I failed. Renka was gasped in horror at what was about to happen, while Kenichi shouted, no wait. The hulking master ignored his plea. Insert. Bleach OST 3 number soundtrack. Treachery here. Then Kenichi and Renka saw a flash of red, then something smashed through one of the windows beside the two fighters just as Sujetsu's palm was about to hit Kisara. The dust in the room kicked up again, screening the scene from view. When the dust settled, Kenichi and Renka saw Sujetsu's palm to the ground with a confused look on his face. Then they noticed something behind him and saw a cloaked figure standing with his back to Sujetsu, who turned to see who had interfered with his fight. They also noticed that the girl who saved them was safe being held bridal style in the man's arms. He was taller than Sujetsu, standing at around 200 cm, covered in a red hooded cloak with black flames around the edges, similar to Kisara's. The girl in question looked up and was surprised to find herself in the arms of her master. Shishim? She was about to ask him something, but was interrupted when Naruto knocked her out with a quick squeeze to the back of her neck, making her slump. This caused her hood to fall off, revealing Kisara's face. Sujetsu narrowed his eyes, Renka and Kenichi startled by the man's actions. Kisara's mask fell, showing beautiful face, revealing who she was. Naruto picked it up and pocketed. Across the room, Kenichi startled as he realized who had saved Renka from her uncle. The boy was confused. Why did Kisara protect us? Isn't she part of Ragnarok? And who is this other guy? The boy's thoughts were interrupted when the man spoke to the sleeping girl. Well done, Kisara. You did better than I thought you would. When I get back we'll begin your new training. But now it's time for me to step in. He lifted his right hand in a half-ram seal. Hiraishin no Jutsu. The others watched in confusion as to what this guy was doing, but they didn't have to wait long. Sujetsu, Renka and Kenichi then watched in shock as the man just vanished in an instant. Confusing them as to how he did it, as it was physically impossible for one to simply vanish without a trace. Naruto's temple. In Kisara's room, in a flash Naruto holding Kisara appeared just by the side of her bed. A second later, a sleeping Kisara gently tucked in her bed. Inside the safe house, Chinatown. Naruto appeared in the same spot as before, but without Kisara, and then he turned to face Sujetsu, who along with Renka and Kenichi, were trying to figure out what happened to Kisara. Now that he was facing them, they saw the full extent of his appearance. Aside from his hooded coat, he wore a black form-fitting shirt with black pants, sandals that exposed his toes, and a necklace with 6 red magatama. His facial features were hidden under a black mask that contoured to his face, with his eyes being the only visible thing under his hood. When they saw his eyes, it sent chills down their spine. They were the deep blue eyes with fox-like slitted pupils, with a dangerous feeling radiating from his gaze. Sujetsu raised his guard. The Chinese master could tell from the guy's eyes that this one was no pushover, especially after he saw him rescue the girl. I haven't seen speed like that since Urinsky Saiga. Just who are you? His thought was interrupted when Naruto broke the room's silence. Anbanha, ma Sujetsu. I am Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin. I must thank you for giving my disciple a good fight. I've wanted her to gain some actual combat experience for some time now. Sujetsu narrowed his eyes at the hooded shinobi. TCH, I see. So you sent her here knowing she couldn't win and used me to test her resolve. Got to say she very well trained. But now I'm more interested in knowing who I'm about to kill. Kenichi and Renka quickly moved back toward the end of the hall, where they could stay a safe distance away, watch the scene unfold. Kenichi wanted to leave, but felt he couldn't leave Renka, who despite her injuries, wanted to stay to find out what was going, as the two masters stared each other down from their respective corners. Sujetsu then entered his signature Kenpo stance, while Naruto slipped into the stance for his style of Taijutsu, Shurashinkan. He was standing with left leg a bit forward, and his right leg was back leaning toward the outer right, causing his body to be grounding his stance, while his arms are in the same way, but left open palmed while the right closed in a tight fist. It was style created by Naruto during his training under Jiraiya 4 years ago, when they left Konoha in order to ready Naruto to face the Akatsuki. Both fighters began releasing enormous killing intent that radiated around the room. When Kenichi felt it, he trembled and swore he saw himself die, and that it felt like their hands were wrapped around his throat. The tension in the room was palpable as the two combatants waited for the right moment to strike. Then without warning it happened. The gates of hell broke loose. And the battle between Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin and Sujetsu, the fighting demon began. Chapter 5. The Sage vs the Fighting Demon. Hanbanha, Ma Sujetsu. I am Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin. I must thank you for giving my disciple a good fight. I've wanted her to gain some actual combat experience for some time now. Sujetsu narrowed his eyes at the hooded shinobi. TCH, I see. Therefore, you sent her here knowing she could not win and used me to test her resolve. Has to say she very well trained. But now I'm more interested in knowing who I'm about to kill. Kenichi and Renka quickly moved back toward the end of the hall, where they could stay a safe distance away, watch the scene unfold. Kenichi wanted to leave, but felt he could not leave Renka, who despite her injuries, wanted to stay to find out what was going, as the two masters stared each other down from their respective corners. Sujetsu then entered his signature Kenpo stance, while Naruto slipped into the stance for his style of Taijutsu, Shurashinkan. He was standing with left leg a bit forward, and his right leg was back leaning toward the outer right, causing his body to be grounding his stance, while his arms are in the same way, but left open palmed while the right closed in a tight fist. It was style created by Naruto during his training under Jiraiya 4 years ago, when they left Konoha in order to ready Naruto to face the Akatsuki. Both fighters began releasing enormous killing intent that radiated around the room. When Kenichi felt it, he trembled and swore he saw himself die, and that it felt like their hands wrapped around his throat. The tension in the room was palpable as the two combatants waited for the right moment to strike. Then without warning, it happened. The gates of hell broke loose. And the battle between Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin and Sujetsu, the fighting demon began. Insert. Tekken 9 The stress relief song. Ma Sujetsu was many things but a coward he was not. However, the moment he looked into Naruto's eyes he knew there is something, he could see a shadowy outline over young man that looked like a real demon. That is not what scared him, what scared was that under that cool emotionless visage, laid an angry demon that had ended hundreds if not thousands of lives. He looked at Naruto dead in the eyes and almost saw it roar at him. Nevertheless, that did not matter, as he was Kengu Kishin Ma Sujetsu. Naruto was growling, as this person was about to kill his student. He took a deep breath calming him and walked slowly toward his opponent. Sujetsu was confused as his challenger just walking to him with no stance. Then he disappeared mid-step shocking everyone present and appeared again on his opponent's blind spot. He quickly attacked with a clawed fist that Sujetsu surprisingly repelled with an elbow jab. They continued to attack each other in high-speed punches, but neither got a hit through. The strength of the clashes was so high that it created a sonic blast that destroyed building windows scattering glass everywhere. The sage and the demon's fists slammed into each other as they blasted and exploded with power. Just outside, on the opposite building was Ma Kensei, as he had reached there just to see the battle between his older brother Sujetsu and the mysterious Naruto began, and he and his fellow masters agreed on he was indeed a master and a powerful one at that. Sujetsu attacked Naruto relentlessly, but the younger man dodged the blows as if they were nothing. Pulling back, Sujetsu attacked Naruto with punches only to change it to a kick, but it missed as the younger man vanished in blur of speed and appeared behind Sujetsu. He then whispered in his ear making him freeze as he touched the back of his neck with his clawed hands cutting his skin, began to bleed. I have already killed you a minimum of 25 times Ma Sujetsu-san. Fight me seriously or is this the best you can do? This taunt made the Chinese master snap as he rotated to give the man behind him a roundhouse kick. Yet again, he missed his target as his target perched on the extended limb, as a bird would do. Then Sujetsu formed a fist and launched a skull-scattering punch to the young shinobi, as before he simply dodged a punch by leaning his head to side. The punch shattered the wall behind the shinobi, and the marital artist drew his hand back in an attempt to grab the younger man. Before Sujetsu could get a hold of him, he would slip easily. Sujetsu tried to use the knife hand attack on him, surprisingly Naruto just slapped it to the side and counter-attacked only for Sujetsu to counter his counter. He brings his foot to his opponent's foot and sidesteps him, proceeding to launch an elbow attack to the vitals of his opponent's back. It would have worked on a normal opponent, but Naruto was nothing normal as he turned and grabbed the deadly elbow with the palm of his hand. Shockwave that came from that collided exploded as the two trying to push the other. Suigetsu grunted as Naruto smirked again, annoying his adversary. Suigetsu felt something terribly wrong here as he could not get a single hit. Kenichi was dumbfounded. Is a real fight between two masters like this? Their attacks are so powerful. I don't know what to do. Naruto smirked as his hand grabbed Suigetsu's elbow and pressed a pressure point while he punched him 5 times in the ribs, using his very high speed as Suigetsu pulled his arm back out of his hold and jumped back to a safe distance. He felt his bruised, numbed arm and his broken ribs as he took into a stance. He could not believe it that not only did he numb his arm, but gave him 3 or more solid punches in a blink of an eye. This one is a very dangerous individual, he could have killed me in one move, but he held back. Why? He got back to his stance and he shouted, "Uriru Banda." And Naruto did not move at all. He stood there ready to take the attack full on. Suigetsu pulled back his good arm and slammed it on top of enemy's head, only to his shock the young man had stopped the move with his 2 fingers of his left hand. He then grabbed and drew in the older man and gave him a right punch so powerful that took his breath out of his lungs and quickly chopped his neck, knocking him out. He then flicked him on the forehead with his middle finger, causing the older man fly to the furthest wall, slamming to it. He simply walked to the downed man as if to finish him off. Now I know why Bachan loved to do that finger flick move. It is so cool, thought Naruto. Stop the song here. Kenichi could not believe what he saw. The man in the red hood stopped that massive attack with 2 fingers. He thought, none of my masters could do that. I have seen the elder stop Apachai punches with his whole hand and this guy stopped a palm attack with 2 fingers. If Renka had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have believed it, but this hood man had beaten her uncle Suigetsu like he was nothing and he did not have a single scratch on him. She thought, who is this guy? It would take a master to be another, even then it would be a battle. But he just finger flicked him and he flew to the goddamn wall. As Naruto walked to the down man, the building floors below exploded as the mafia who escaped ordered his men to blow it up. The 2 kids were scared as the building started to burn and Naruto cursed. I hate doing this but I have to. He flashed in front of Kenichi and Renka, shocking them with his speed. They looked up at his towering figure, then he whispered, "Don't worry." Then all they saw was black as he knocked them out too. He picked them up, placing the girl under his left arm and hosing the boy on his right shoulder. He walked to pick up Suigetsu, only that Ma-Kensei attacked himself. Ma-Kensei was furious as this mysterious man had his disciple and his daughter as hostages and he saw as he knocked his older brother as if he was nothing. He had no idea what he was up against or anything of the style of martial arts this Naruto character used. Nevertheless, he knew that he was strong, very strong, maybe even more than the elder was, and he was fast, too faster than anything he had ever seen. He was about to attack to get back the children when heard, "Oi oi. I am not trying to kidnap them, okay? I am trying to get them out of here. Get your brother out while I will take care of the kids. Come on, hurry." Then Naruto jumped out the window and landed on the ground easily, even with the weight of 2 people on him. Kensei went to pick up his brother. He took his arm and put him on his shoulder. Kensei said, "Now is there any chance of us being the same as before, Aniki?" He signed and looked around for an exit but found all either blocked or unreachable, so he copied Naruto and jumped out the window. He failed to notice a shadow in the flame and it was Naruto, or rather his clone, and as he was preparing a suitin jutsu to put out the fire. Imperial Wrath Chinese Restaurant, Yokohama, Chinatown. Ma-Kensei was in wait to see how his brother was. Uncle Hakubi had him in a room in the back. The said person walked out of backroom with his 2 disciples and smiled at Kensei as he bared good news. He asked Kensei to sit in one of the empty seats. And as both sat, Kensei's uncle signed and said, "Kensei, luckily your brother's injuries were far from fatal, but it will take time for them to heal, as injuries he received were meant to put him out of service for a while. As for the children, they are just fine. But who did this to them? As far as I know you would be the only one to defeat your brother, Kensei." Kensei signed as his hat lowered to shadow his eyes, "Uncle, you will not believe me as I don't believe it myself either. However, the rumors you heard were not rumors after all, as I have met the young fella to blame for it. He calls himself Uzumaki Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin, and he is stronger than I have ever thought possible. He appeared to me as a ghost and even left like one. He even has a disciple that was clearly stronger and a higher level than Ken-chan or even Mu-chan. He sent her to fight Aniki, even though he knew she had no fighting chance, and she, I might add, knew it, but had not only the resolve, but also the courage and will to fight against impossible odds. I must say he has one of the most determined and loyal disciple I have ever seen, and he trained and molded her skillfully." Hakubi just stated. The Sage of Six Paths. Interesting name, no? Tensei continues, when he was fighting Aniki it was as if he was toying with him, like he was not enough for him to fight seriously, and what scared me is the fact that my brother was defeated so easily, that he might be as strong if not stronger than Furinji Hayato. This surprised the older man as he knew how powerful the invincible Superman was, and the possibility exists that someone is stronger than him is alarming. What's more is that he fought without any killing intent and knocked Aniki out instead of killing him. So I thought he might be one of us, a Katsujinkan user, maybe. Maybe not, as he is an unknown, Kensei, replied Hakubi. I better take my disciple back home. Sorry about my daughter and thank you for everything. He bows and then turns to leave as he picked up his student as carried him on his shoulder. Looks like the something that will shake the world will happen, said Hakubi strangely to himself. A week later, unknown location. In a dark room, there were 10 shadows, 9 visible while the 10th was behind a veil. One of the shadows started talking and he said, I have lately begun hearing rumors of a new master, a very powerful master. The group started whisper among themselves as to whom or what this master is. Then the same shadow unbroken uninterrupted said, we don't know for certain, but it is rumored that this master uses a never heard before fighting style and is quite strong as he had wiped the floor with 2 master class fighters. The first was Retsuman K from the Black Tiger White Dragon Alliance, also known as the Human Calamity. He died in a strange state as he did have a single scratch or fatal wound on him. He died looking like the Shinigami took his soul out of his body, or something is what the rumors say. But 2 weeks ago, this master had beaten Kengu Kishin Masajetsu easily like he was play with a child, but he did not kill him like Retsuman, though he was content with just humiliating him and knocking him out. The dark room was buzzing with chatter as to who is the new, and according to the grapevine, powerful fighter is. It would seem they would discuss, but they were silenced by the leader who as he started to say, whomever he is we must first know is if he is a Katsujinkan user or a Satsujinkan. Moreover, if he is a Satsujinkan user then, Wien invites him to join us, as he would be too strong to just leave alone. He might even join our enemy the Rimzenpaku. They all agreed with their leader as he had just made a very insightful line of thought. Then he told them, therefore no fight him unless they have to, escape or survive. Am I clear? They all nodded, but a few had different ideas swimming in their heads. At the same time, Rimzenpaku. The masters all were in a meeting, as they had to discuss about the new master class fighter Uzumaki Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin. They all knew nothing of his skills, except he is very strong, stronger the elder and faster much faster as well. He also defeated Masajetsu without any form of battle let alone techniques. Uzumaki Naruto had beaten Sagetsu because he was stronger, faster and much more powerful than he was. His fighting style was too neutral say anything about it, meaning that what he used neither do nor say, and to see such a style is rather rare if not impossible at all. The elder said, Kensei what do you think of young man, Uzumaki Naruto? Kensei said, elder I don't know what to think anymore. If I have not seen him destroying brother I would not have believed at all. The way he did is what scares me as only his eyes show death and misery. It makes even me and even my brother shiver at the thought. Tsukaki smirked and taunted, what Kensei did he scare you that much? Kensei looked at him and said, you will know when you see him yourself my friend. Tsukaki's face changed to that of alarm and replied, you can't be serious. You mean he's that strong? So he is powerful and he knows about us, but we don't know anything about him, said Akasum finally. Appa so he is a person I can fight a papa, said the childish Apachai. Apachai? He might be even more powerful than the elder so. If you fight him, you will die, said the beautiful young woman known as Kumsaka Shigur. Also my brother vanished 2 days after his defeat by the sage and is gone now, said Kensei. Ho. I would like to meet him myself and maybe I would feel young again. Oh to fight all out without a care in the world. Such is the beauty of youth, said the elder nostalgically. Kenichi was lying on this bed as he thought of that super strong master who saved him in Marenka. He found out that he was the rumored master that very strong and even more powerful than his master S. He thought, let me ask Mu-san about what kind of martial arts he uses. He got up and walked to his door. He then looked for Mu and found her doing the laundry as usual. He called her and she looked at him smiling said, hi Kenichi-san. Is there something you help with? Oh no, not really but I would like to ask you about something. You know about the different styles of martial arts right? He asked. Yes, not as much Jiji though, what is the matter Kenichi-san? She got curious as to what bothered him. Well Mu-san, I went with Ma Sifu and remember what Ma Hakubi-san said about that master who defeated the Chinese mafia. We met him, Rinka-san and me last week and he was very strong as out of this world strong and fast too I saw him save his disciple in a less than a second. He was there 1 second and the next he vanished with his disciple and came back a second later without her. Her? Kenichi-san so the disciple was girl. She said that while looking a bit peeved. Oh, she is, and you will not believe who she is or how strong she was. She took Masajetsu on, and she actually made him bleed before he almost killed her, and her master saved her. Do I know her, Kenichi-san? She asked as her cat-like curiosity got the best of her. It was Eight-Fist Nanjum Kasara-san, the redhead you fought and defeated. She was very strong, much stronger and faster than that time you girls fought. She became such a beauty too. Oh, I see, I will see you at the dojo for training, Kenichi-san, she said with a fake smile and a voice that would freeze anyone. But how did get that strong? Even I can make a master bleed yet. I must be very careful when I fight her again, as she thought to herself. Kenichi felt like he had just committed a suicide and had sent himself to an early grave. He just gulped as his head fell in despair. What is wrong with Mu-san? Why is so angry now? A month later, Naruto's temple. Naruto sneezed a lot today, as it would seem many people are talking about him, and just when he thought they finished he sneezed even loaded, as he also felt the use of the forbidden word youth being used. He was happy that nothing serious happened to his disciple, as she was very precious to him now. She remained him so much of younger self when he was still a green little genin. He knew that she will a great Kunoichi, and he will start teaching her some basic Urim ninjutsu with botch and strength technique, but some elemental ninjutsu first, and what element is she? He thought maybe I should publish Hiro Sennin perverted books, as I would get a fortune out of them here. I might even write my own titles later on. He cleaned his nose and contemplating new ways to torture. He coughed, he meant train his disciple, and started to laugh evilly. While he was laughing, somewhere else said disciple was having a soak in the onsen. The water was warm and helped relax her tense muscle. She unexpectedly felt a terrible chill down her spine and thought maybe Shisho is trying to make some new crazy shit kind way for me to train. Oh, Kami-sama, why me? Naruto called Kasara to meet him in the dojo. He said in a voice of authority, Nanjum Kasara, as you have chosen the path of the shinobi, you must forget all other attachments and grudges you may have, as they will not help you. Therefore you must cut your relationship with that Ragnarok gang. Hi, Shishim, I will do it. I was about to ask you about the same thing, and if I could go see my parents as well, replied Kasara. Of course, Kasara-chan, you can, and do you want me to take you there? I am faster than anything you know, said with a confident smirk. Oh, thank you, Shishim. It will save the time to get there, and I will finish getting dressed in my civvies, replied Kasara. But do go naked, as I will give only one weapon to defend yourself. Now here, take this with you, said Naruto as he handed her a 10. She looked at him strangely as he was giving her a small katana. He answered her unasked question by saying, I have already trained you to use it, but you lack the experience from fighting other people, so use it and train hard, my cute disciple. Hi Shishim, thank you very much, replied Kasara as she was wearing her old clothes. She was thinking about her clothes. All my clothes don't fit anymore. I am happy I got these, but I need to get some new treads today. Thank Kami I found Shishim, or I would be the same girl, tomboyish girl I used to be. But how am I going to get the money for them? Kasara-chan, if you want to go get some new civilian clothes, I won't mind, and I will give you as much money as you need, so don't worry. So wear the usual and use a henge until you get them, as if he read her mind, shocking her again. How the hell does he do that? 3 hours later, Old Industrial Section, Tokyo. Kasara wore an unzipped red hoodie, showing her cleavage of her now very impressive bust, with a black pair of custom jeans and her ninja sandals. She also braided her long hair into a long braid similar to that of Yorinji Mu. She wore the hood, as it was chilly weather. She had bought all she wanted and more, even meet her parents, as she amazed them with her new look. She now has one thing left to do, which is leaving Ragnarok, that will result in her fighting one if not all of the 3 of Card, i.e. Odin, Berserker, and Freya. She knows that now she is able to take them on, all 3 of them, but her master taught her to never underestimate her opponents and never give them mercy to counterattack. She walks to the command post that was an abandoned warehouse. The goons at the entrance looked and had perverted smirks as they got close to her, trying to hit on her. She scowled as she said in a cold, icy voice, if you guys don't want to die, get out of my way. Now. She released a large concentrated amount of killing intent on the thugs, scaring them half to death. One of them recognized who she was and shouted, guys. This is Valkyrie-sama, so clear the path for her. He turned and bowed his head and looked at her and apologizes to her for their stupidity. She scoffs at them and ignored the looks the underlings were giving her. She walked and entered as the thugs started to whisper of how she changed. She smiled and opened the door. She enters as she meets the shadow outlines of the other members of the Ragnarok. They all looked at her in disbelief, as she had changed a lot in the last few months of absence. All of them looked at her as if studying her, and Loki the 4th Fist was the first one to break the awkward silence by saying, oh look what the cat dragged in. And laughed at his own joke. Unfortunately, none of the other fists found it funny and just ignored Loki, who continued saying, so where have you been, Valkyrie, what is with the new outfit? But most importantly, where were you hiding them? only to be interrupted by Kisara, who threw a pebble at the fourth fist's forehead. She shocked everyone as they did see her move at all, making Auden and Freya narrow their eyes at the development. She said with a very cold voice they never heard her use before. Loki, listen and listen well. If you ever make a perverted comment about me or any other female in front of me, I will kill you slowly and painfully. They made all present including Loki wide their eyes at what they just heard from Kisara. Loki quivered slightly as he saw her icy cold emerald eyes stare right through his soul and felt a cold dread forcing itself down his spine. Auden looked in interest as he never thought Kisara had it in her. Freya was very surprised by Kisara's behavior as she was never this cold to anyone before. The rest of them were surprised and had the same idea as the Freya and Auden. Kisara took out a Ragnarok 8 glove and threw it to the ground in front of the group and she said, I quit from Ragnarok. I do not need the Sage Fist anymore as he will never teach me anything. So this is my goodbye. She turned to leave as she was about to start walking. Auden said, oh Valkyrie, do you think you can just quit and leave just like that? Yes, and watch me do it, said Kisara. Auden signaled Freya to attack her, who jumped and attacked Kisara from behind with her staff, only for something shocking happened. Kisara just disappeared from view and appeared behind Freya with a short katana or tant made of a black twinkling steel blade at her throat, freezing her in her place. This surprised the group as to how Kisara had gotten behind Freya and has her in a fatal position. Kisara paralyzes Freya with a finger strike to the back of her head on a pressure point and she grabbed her and made her sit on a nearby container. Don't worry, it will wear off by the time I leave. She sheaths the blade without showing where she hides it. She turned to the group and said I will leave whether you like it or not, if not. She started to do weird hand gestures, but they were very fast so no one saw what they were. Kisara was thinking, horse snake ram monkey boar horse tiger and whispered Kaiten. Nkakik no jutsu. She inhaled and her chest inflated as she drew in air and chakra from her mouth into her chest and she immediately exhales it. She brought her right hand to her mouth in a way to control the flames, then blows a stream of fire that erupts into a large sphere of flames burning the glove and the floor with it. She stops the flame, nothing was left of the glove but ash and as the fists of Ragnarok had their mouths hanging open at what they saw. All of them were terrified as they never saw anything like this before. Then they looked at the girl that caused it and she looked at them with those same very cold if not even colder than before, with large doses of killing intent choking them all making them weak at the knees. She turned to leave as she reached the door of the warehouse she turned her face towards them and said, by the way my name is no longer Valkyrie, it is Riketsu Nico, and remember it well. She then faded away into the dark night. Remsen Paku, next day. Kenichi, I have news about Ragnarok for you. You will not believe what happened to them last night. Said the evil friend of Shirahama Kenichi, Hiro Naijima. He got to the dojo and saw Kenichi in Mew training. He then said, Kenichi you not believe what happened yesterday night. Okay, Naijima I'm all ears so what's so important that you come here earlier than usual? Said Kenichi. Kenichi there was a fight in Ragnarok last night and Kisara left the group after she defeated the third fist Freya. That is not all she did something that scared the living hell out of the fist, I mean they did not even say anything as their faces were ghostly pale when they left their base. They also said that they were not to hunt down to punish her or even come close to Kisara. I don't know what happened and the fists were tight-lipped about the whole thing. Oh, great I have one member less to worry about, said Kenichi as he signed. What is it that she could have done to scare the leaders of Ragnarok that much? Asked Mew. I really don't know and it's like she fell off the radar. Last time she was seen was after your fight then after a week she vanished for how many months, only to return and leave the Ragnarok, said Naijima. Oh I just remembered something about Kisara, I have seen her about a month or so ago and she helped Renka and me with Masifu's older brother. She was very different as she was very stunning and extremely dazzling, and not only that she was very strong and fast. I saw her kick Masajetsu to a wall and she could match him in speed before he got serious. Then before Sagetsu could give the final blow, a rather tall man blurred so fast that we did not even see him rescued her and disappeared. He then returned in less than a second without her and defeated Masajetsu very easily. Mew got a bit upset on how Kenichi described Kisara and pouted angrily. Kenichi noticed and said, but not as beautiful as Mew-san though, making her smile and him sign. Naijima was putting all he heard on his PDA and said, oh I see now, I have to add her to my plan as a wild card as she is no longer part of Ragnarok. However, do you know who the man who saved her was or what his name was? Kenichi said, Kirito. Or Rapoto. Naijima shouted as he said, did you just say Arikim? Oh shit do you know who that guy is? They say he is a very powerful and mysterious person. Everyone has heard of him and what is the problem is that he destroyed most of the gangs in Tokyo. The whole crime underworld is afraid of him and will not do anything against him as he would just destroy them. I mean he did it in only 24 hours and finished off the Yakuza of this area some time ago. He is a very dangerous and powerful person, they even say that he might be the most powerful man alive. But what would he want for Kisara? Naijima, if she was wearing the same clothes as the Rikudou character, this means he is her sensei, said Mew. Kenichi and Naijima shivered as thought about it. Chapter 6. Training with the Sage. A month and a half Naruto's ninja temple. After the fight with kung fu martial artist Masajetsu, Naruto had started some intense physical training for Kisara, as she was a female she had to work twice as hard as her male counterpart was. He had increased the weight of the prayer beads to about the double. He also had to start make some new ways seals on her clothes as her body adjusted to these easily. He trained her whole body to the point she started to control each of her fingers and toes individually. He needs her to be a tip-top shape in order to increase her strength and chakra capacity as it was still genin level. He had also to the point she had almost perfect chakra control, but not perfect as he wanted her to have. As her chakra capacity increased, her control over it decreased, and so he had her stick various numbers of leaves using her chakra on her body as he trained her into jutsu. Therefore, she had a decent amount of chakra control and started her other training. They started to train on running fast and silently. He also taught her how to walk and disappear among the crowds without them knowing. He taught her the Henzumjutsu, as she would need to know how to hide when she was low on chakra. He still did not show her the Kage Bunshin or any high-level jutsu yet as they would kill her. However, he had taught her some low-level Jinjutsu like Meijin. Narakumi no Jutsu, Kasumi Jiksha no Jutsu and Meijin. Kokoni Arazu no Jutsu and others. He also taught her low-ranking ninjutsu like Kaiten. Msenka no Jutsu. He even made her a black steel ninja with a red tsuba and taught her Kenjutsu, but of course, she was having a hard time unlike Taijutsu. He then started to train all her senses, as a shinobi must be quick to act and react to any possible threat in a mission. He had started her training without the use of her eyes, which enhanced her hearing and sensing capabilities. She placed her in a dark room and started to throw dull-edged kunai and shuriken at her erratically. At first, she'd been hit many times, but as she trained, she began to be hit less and less until she could sense them flying through the air deflecting them and even throw back at her master. Her master was proud as she learned fast and she impressed him by her performance. So he increased the speed and intensity of the train, making Kisara cry in pain and angry as he laughed at her misfortune. He then said, "Oh Kisara-chan, you did well, but you will have to do better and calm yourself. Now as you have passed level 1 we will begin the next level." Kisara was screaming in her mind, "Oh no. Remsen Paku." Kenichi had just beaten the Siegfried, the fifth fist, and used his new move he named Mabashi, which means no beat. A couple of weeks later, he fought Hermit the sixth fist next as his little sister Hinoka, kidnapped by Ragnarok, but Loki who kidnapped her used Hermit through Kensei Sama names to try to destroy Kenichi. Only Kenichi to beat him and Odin to appear to stop Loki. Then he fought Hermit again and defeated him. Now Kenichi was thinking of the first fist Odin and the power he held. He was training to make a finishing move as he saw Mizunuma-san finishing move. He trained with his masters and asked each one of them, but they all gave him moves that would not. Who was he kidding? Those moves would kill anyone, so he left it to brood on the dojo floor. As he was talking to the elder about his finishing move, he heard a familiar female voice insult him, so he got up to investigate. He saw someone jump and land on the outer wall. He first noticed a pair of purple shoes that connected to a pair of beautiful feminine strong legs that in turn covered by a red Chinese dress with flora patterns. He looked and said, "You're Marenka-san. What are you doing here?" The beautiful young woman replied, "I am here to take Papa back." The said father was closing his clinic and packing his bag as he tried to escape for his headstrong daughter. She caught sight of him and said, "Where do you think you're going, Papa?" Kenichi's master, Ma Kensei, froze in his place as he held pack with him. He turned to look at his daughter and said, "Forgive me, Renka. But your father does not want to return to China yet." "I will tell Mama about this place," replied Renka in an authoritative voice. This caused the father to start to panic and run to his as he need, begging her not to tell her mother. "Please Renka, anything but that." A couple of weeks later. Naruto was extremely happy that he had chosen Kisara as she was making him proud every day with her training. She was above Sasuke's level as a genin when he left to go to Orochimaru. She was ready to start missions as a genin. He had the perfect mission for her, a C-ranked mission. He had told her to get ready and get her gear. She took the all she need and placed them in the special shinobi pouches her Shishim had given her. She found it odd that no matter what she put in it, the pouch would not be heavier or even full, like it was a bottomless pit. She asked her Shishim and he replied, "Oh good eye, you have noticed it quite easily." This made her blush and happy as he Shishim had become a very important person to her. He continued saying, "It is one of the many properties and uses of Kenjutsu that I have told you about. It is very advanced and you are not ready for it yet. Plus it will be much later as it is quite difficult and takes a lot of time to learn." She agreed with him as he knew what she would need and that ninja is very diverse. She finished taking her kunai, shuriken, fastened her new ninjutsu on her back and then walked to meet her master. A few moments later, she found him meditating on that same stone slab on that spike. His eyes were closed and she tried to sneak closer and he scared her by speaking, "Kasara-chan, are you ready for your first mission?" She was shocked. How do he keep doing that? I was hiding like he taught me and he still find me without even opening his eyes. That's a master for ya. She said, "Yes, Shisham. I have everything I need for this mission." He jumped off the spike and took the stone slab with him. He placed it on the ground, looked into his student's eyes and said, "Your first mission is to rescue the mayor's daughter from a group of terrorists in Tokyo. They are hiding and I have found out that they are also martial artists among them. Your job is to sneak and rescue her without them knowing it. When you are done, flare your chakra and I will be there to get you out of there. So I will give you a picture of the girl. Her name is Yamamoto Fubuki-chan and she is about 10 years old." He hands her a picture of a cute little girl with a doll face around 10 years old and had dark eyes with black hair and she had a doll with her of a cat. Kasara was thinking, "Oh, she is so cute. I want to cuddle and hug her like a little kitten." Naruto interrupted her thoughts by saying, "You can hug and cuddle her all you want after you rescue her." She was astounded as he might be able to read her mind or something. She said, "Hi Shishima." They vanished in a Shunshin no Jutsu as Naruto placed his hands on Kasara's shoulders. Central part of Tokyo. Naruto and Kasara appeared on a roof somewhere in central Tokyo. She still could not get used to the jutsu her Shishim can perform. She shook her head to remove those thoughts and concentrate on her mission. She started to walk into a dark alley, jumped up and started to ninja sprint across the roofs looking for her target. She reached the house of the Tokyo's mayor and she used the hinge turning herself into a bird and flew to the mansion. She landed on the window of the mayor's living room. She saw the mayor looking nervous pacing the back and forth. He was waiting for something and then the telephone rang surprisingly making the mayor jump at it as if it was going to explode. Kasara had activated her super hearing and she heard him answer saying, "Hello, please don't harm my daughter, she is all I have got to live for. As you told me, I have not told anyone of this, just please let her go." The heavily accented voice on the other end of the line spoke, "Shut up, you fool. Now listen closely, Mr. Mayor, you will never hear of your daughter again, Hanamish." Kasara heard the voice of a weird accent but she remembered hearing that particular word somewhere before. She suddenly came to her that it was from the last spy movie. She remembered it meant understand. So therefore, she figured out that she was dealing with the Russian mafia. They were trying to get ransom money for the mayor's daughter. The scared mayor nodded and replied, "Yes sir, I understand, I will do whatever, you just don't harm her." The voice said, "Meet us alone at the harbor in the warehouse number 23 in an hour with the money. Moreover, remember no police or you will not like what you see." The man on the other end hanged up making the mayor fall down on his knees crying, begging God to send him a miracle. Ironically, his miracle was listening and had just flown towards the nearest roof a long way to the harbor. Kasara dispelled the hinge jutsu. She thought, "Damn, it will take me an hour to get there on foot. Oh shit, what do I do now?" She then remembered her master's advice and sat down, took a deep breath to think more properly. She never ran at high speed before as she had her weight seals on her always. Therefore, this made it more difficult to move as the seals would become heavier if she started to get used to the first weight setting. Her master had warned her not to take off the weight unless it was for something of great importance. She found this to be extremely important, so she placed her hand in the Hitsuji hand seal and shouted Kai. She felt her body instantly much lighter like a feather. She tested her arms and legs finding them all feeling great and she began to crouch as she was getting ready for a full-blown run. She then vanished and in her place was a cloud of dust as she dashed on her way to the harbor at full speed. Somewhere along the way, she blown past the people of Rimzenpaku, but only the masters noticed her as she was running stealthily. Then Akasum said in a low voice, "Oh look at that, I did not know there were children of that level before, Kensei, what do you think?" Ma Kensei replied, "She was the same child that fought and made my brother bleed. She has become even faster than before. What kind of master are we dealing with here?" Apachai was surprised too, "Appa. She very fast. Faster than you or Kenichi. Appa Papa." Shigeru was also surprised, she was a Kenoichi. I have never seen a real one before. I agree with Shigeru-chan as I have never seen one myself. This shocked the rest of the masters as they knew that the wise elder who knew many styles had never actually seen shinobi or Kenoichi before. "Tsukaki, aren't they assassins or murders, so why didn't I feel any killing intent from her as she passed us?" The elder answered him, "Ha ho ho. I think she was going to do else, maybe like training or seeing how fast she could go." Yu, Kenichi and the other students had naturally questions as they did not understand what the masters were talking about, but both Mew and Kenichi were thinking, "But I hear them say a Kenoichi." Tokyo Harbor. Our young Kunoichi just arrived to the harbor in less than 20 minutes. She was happy and proud that her training with her shishim had paid off. She was not even winded, she ran like the wind and was silently deadly too. On her way here, she noticed a group of familiar people. Kenichi boy, Ushijichi and a Chinese girl and 2 other boys she did not know were among them. All the adults had the same air of strength around them like Masajetsu. Therefore they were all master class and I can't even attack them. Not that I want anyways, as I have a bigger things to do than fight these kids, she thought. Anyway, she was at the outer wall of the harbor. She looked into the place looking for the warehouse with the number 23 on it. She found it, but it had a tight security around it with men that looked like the Russians from the mafia. They were wearing black suits, some had Alaska 47s and knives, while others had what looked like a PP-90, a foldable submachine gun on their person. The sun was setting, making the shadows longer and even making it easier for her to sneak in without using a single jutsu. She was on a roof inside the harbor and she noted down the position of all the men. She jumped down from the roof, landed without making a single sound and used her training to become one with the shadows. She found her route to the warehouse blocked, so she walked through the back to reach it from behind. She saw that a single guard who looked bored and was even yawning guarded the door. She wanted to have a laugh, so she took a trick from her shishim's book. She used the henge no jutsu and changed into a beautiful buxom young blonde woman wearing a business suit which was open in the chest area. She swayed her hips as she walked with her valley open to the whole world sea. This caught the sentry off guard. He was about to ask her what she was doing here until he saw her clothes and forgot the question. She looked at him and purred at him with a sensual voice, "Can you help me, big boy? I need someone to do me a favor." The guard blushed as he never had any luck with women before and she was stunning. Not trusting his voice, he nodded as she took him by the hand behind a dumpster. Before he could say a word, she knocked him out with a chop to the neck and tied him up. She released her transformation and said, "That wasn't so bad, but I still feel dirty for it." She used a henge no jutsu again and became a copy of the man she just knocked out. She walked back to the door and heard someone say, "Hey Boris, the boss is looking for you now. He asked you to go and guard the girl." Kasara could not believe her luck as she entered the warehouse and was shown the location of the little girl. She nodded to the guard that was stationed there and the leader who said, "Boris, I need you to stay here and guard the child as we wait for the mayor with the cash." Kasara said, "Yes boss." The boss nodded and left with the other man, leaving Boris and the hostage. Boris saw the little petite girl tied up to a chair with some sticky tape on her mouth as a gag. Boris looked around and closed the gate door from the inside. He walked to the little girl and said, "Fubuki-chan, I will take you to your daddy, okay? So don't be afraid. I am a friend. I will remove this thing from your mouth, but don't speak loudly until I tell you that you can." "Thank you, Boris-an," was the first thing she said. Boris shook his head and said, "My name is not Boris and it's Kasara." The little girl looked confused and said, "But that's a girl's name, isn't it?" "Oh, sorry about that, this is not my true form." "Wait a minute, I will show it to you," said the now named Kasara. Uff was all the little girl heard as smoke enveloped Boris and as the smoke scattered, Kasara appeared in her ninja uniform. The little girl was stunned, speechless and looked at her with stars in her eyes. She said, "Kasara Onasama. That was so cool. What are a kunoichi?" Kasara shushed her as she did not want any noise and said, "I am a kunoichi, but don't tell anyone of my name, okay? It is our little secret." "Hi Kasara Onasama," replied the little cute 10 years old. As Kasara untied the little girl, the mafia found the real Boris tied up and knocked out when he went to light a smoke. He ran and called the boss and told him about the impostor. This shocked the boss as the person impersonating Boris was a lifelike copy of him. The boss called all the men and went to door of the warehouse where the girl and impostor were and tried to open the door, found it locked. He called his comrades to knock the door down and they started to bang at it. Kasara heard the noise and said, "Fubuki-chan, hide behind those boxes and do get out until I ask you to." The little girl hid behind the craters and just peeked out. The door finally gave away and the thugs and their leader entered the warehouse and spread in an arc in front of Kasara. The leader was surprised to see a beautiful red-headed young girl had knocked out Boris and took his place. Kasara placed her hands on her shuriken and kunai holsters. He said, "Oh look what we have here, a hero wannabe, but a beautiful one I might add." The criminals laughed as the boss stated on the impostor. "Listen boys, have fun with her, then kill her and get the kid." One of the smarter thugs said, "But boss, don't you what, she is a ninja, just look at all her weapons, she will kill us for sure." "You're right, there is no such thing, she is nothing but some wannabe in a costume." "Now kill her and get the kid," said the boss. They all aimed their guns at her and Kasara readied herself. They fired and until they finished their magazines and they all laughed as they saw the girl blown to pieces. Then the same smarter thug asked, "Comrades, why did we shoot a crater to pieces?" They saw the girl vanish in a puff of smoke replaced with a destroyed crater. Then all of a sudden it rained shuriken on them and wounded them as they dropped their now useless weapons. In a flash, the girl they thought they killed attacked and knocked the smartest thug with a punch to his stomach, and they all looked terrified as their boss screamed at them. "You idiots, what are you waiting for? Kill her." They grabbed their knives and attacked at the girl. The said girl grabbed her ninja in a ready stance, waiting for the thugs to come closer. The first thug who got close to her tried to stab her. The word here is tried, as instant he was within her range, she draws her blade cutting his and knocked him out with the blunt side of her sword. She held the ninja in her right hand parallel to her legs and had her left foot forward and the right back. She then did the same to the next 7 idiots and stopped only to sheath her sword. The boss was frightened as he could not believe that a teenage girl had just taken out his men like they were nothing. She vanished and appeared behind him with a small knife on his neck and said, "Oh, so why did you kidnap the mayor's daughter?" "Why would I tell you, bitch, anything?" said the boss with fake bravado. He was actually ready to shit himself as she appeared like a ghost. "She is the real deal, a fucking real ninja." "Oh, I don't know. It might make me not torture you for it as it will hurt like a bitch," she replied coldly. He felt a cold sensation running down his spine from her cold and indifferent voice, and he said, alright. I will tell you. I was hired by some guy who works for the current mayor and want him out of his position and take his place. I don't know the guy. He also said that if we help him now, he will let us start a branch of our organization here in Tokyo." "Oh, thanks, that is all I wanted to hear." She then knocked the man out with a punch to the head. "That is alright now, Fubuki-chan. You can come out now," said the kunoichi in a warm voice. "Sugoi Kasara wa ni-sama. You were so cool," said the little girl. "Thank you, but that was nothing compared to what my master would have done it without even moving," said Kasara honestly. The little girl was having stars in her eyes and said, "Really, he must be very powerful then." "Yes, he is. I mean, I can't even touch him yet," said Kasara a bit gloomily. She smiled at the little girl and said, "Okay, I will call my shishim so he will get us out of here. Please be on your best behavior." The little girl nodded and Kasara began to concentrate her chakra on the Hiraishin no Jutsu Shiki on the back of her neck. Business part of Tokyo. Naruto had just finished selling his godfather's first novel and they have paid him a very hefty amount for the publishing rights. But he still owned the books and they will print them the way he wants them to. Jinjutsu is a great thing to have as it saved me a lot of trouble and annoyance. I think I will also write a romance book unlike dear old Iro Sennin, and I am sure it will be a better hit than Icha series, thought Naruto as he walked out the office. Naruto had already spoken with Tokyo's mayor and was ready and waiting for his disciple's signal. Flashback begins. The mayor was nervous as he had to get the money without anyone knowing, and he did not know how. The man was an honest man who lived and worked hard to get to his position today. He did not know why he was targeted as he had nothing of value. "You do not know this, but you have any enemy who would like you to resign and forcing you it by your daughter," said a stranger's voice. The mayor looked around and could find who said that and said to himself, "I think I am going crazy. First my daughter and now I hear voices. What next? A shadow come to life and eat me?" The voice spoke again, but this time from behind him. "I would be so skeptical if I were you." The mayor turned around only to see a man in a red hooded coat and black pants sitting on the visitor's chair with his arms crossed looking at him with shadowed eyes. The mayor panicked and shouted, "Who are you?" The man replied, "A friend, I am here to help you get your daughter back. So can you sit down or you will grade a stroke." The mayor signed and said, "What do you want?" Flashback ends. Naruto did take anything from him but told him if he ever needed help with anything he was the man for the job. He also asked him if he gets any reports about him to please destroy it. He will also clean the city for him of criminals, drug lords and every evil kind of evil in the city. They made a deal and Naruto gave him Hiraishin kunai as a calling card. He told him whenever he needed him to throw it and he will come but only on very important matters. He agrees and he left the house. He was now waiting for the signal from his student. He felt the familiar tingle of his father's technique. He smiled and disappeared in a flash of crimson. Tokyo Harbor. Suddenly a tall man in the same coat as Kasara appeared in front of the girls and Kasara said, "Hibiki-chan, this is my master and mentor, Uzumaki Naruto the Rikudou Sannin." The little girl bowed showing respect to the sage and said, "It is a great honor and pleasure to you, Uzumaki-sama." Naruto laughed as he said, "To me as well, Yamamoto Fubuki-chan. By the way, this Sama thing makes me feel old, so just call me Naruto Oni-chan." "Hi, Naruto Oni-sama," said the polite little girl, while Naruto continued to laugh. He stopped laughing, faced Kasara as he said, "Kasara-chan, you have done such a great job in finding, saving the girl and finally defeating the gangsters by using only one jutsu. I am happy and proud that you have gotten to this level and you are such a good student and Kunoichi as well." Kasara was red from happiness, pride and embarrassment as she loved to be complimented by her shishma. He continued saying, so now we have to get the young lady to her waiting father, Kasara Yukari Fubuki-chan, well get us all back at her father's mansion. She nodded and placed the younger girl on her shoulders as her master prepared the teleportation jutsu. Then Kasara grabbed her Shishim's left shoulder and he shouted, Hirashin no jutsu. Then they all disappeared in a crimson flash. Mayor's manor. The trio appeared before the stunned mayor as he was looking at the kunai Naruto gave him. He was knocked out of his thoughts when he heard the voice of his daughter calling him, Papa. The man got off his seat and rushed towards his child as he began to choke the life out of her in a hug as he cried. Naruto and Kasara laughed at the situation as they felt sorry for the little girl. Their laughter reminded the mayor of their presence. He let go of his child and bowed with his face to the ground to both Kasara and Naruto. The mayor said, Uzumaki-sama, I Yamamoto Kenji am in your debt for as long as I live, so please tell me anything you want and I will do it for you. But Naruto would not have such things, so he stopped him and said, oh no Kenji-san, I will not like my new friend to bow to me like a servant, so please there is no need for such formality. Now please get up and stop embarrassing yourself. Now as I have told you before I have done this for the fact that you are an honest man and have been doing your best for the sake of the people of Tokyo, therefore I will need nothing from you. But I will ask you to call me whenever you're in serious trouble and I or one of my students will aid you, finished Naruto as he turned and looked at Kasara who bowed to the mayor and grabbed her master's shoulder as they both vanished in a crimson flash. A mayor who was hugging his daughter thought, who are you, Uzumaki Naruto? Why are you so kind to a useless man like me? Chapter 7. The Sage vs the Masters of Rinzenpaku Part I. Naruto's Ninja Temple. It has been about 6 months since that Nanjim Kasara became Naruto's student. He trained her in all forms of ninja, with the exception of Kenjutsu and Kinjutsu. Naruto was sitting reading his book as he trained Kasara in how to control her center of gravity and use her opponents against them. He had started to train her in the ways of using chakra to enhance muscle and reaction time. The chakra gradually increased her original strength and reflexes, therefore increasing her abilities even further. He also taught her the basic Inyazuka style Taijutsu and the Hikage Ken style. From there he helped her develop her own style, which he named Nikko no Tsumarik. She taught her how to extend her reach using chakra. She showed how to grow her nails and make them as sharp as steel. She was a bit skeptical about the harder than steel part, so he showed her. He brought a large solid piece of stone and stood in front of it as he gathered his chakra in his right hand. She saw his nails grow to about an inch or two and sharpen into claws, and then he swapped his hand across the stone vertically. Nothing happened and smirked as she was right, or so she thought. Then she saw the stone getting sliced 6 clean pieces and even the ground had 5 claw-like slashes on it. She gulped as her Shishim smirked at her and she never doubted him ever again. He told her the secret was to make your chakra as sharp as possible by folding it upon itself, gaining a sharper edge and then applying it on the body part, therefore nails here or weapon you used like kunai, shuriken, swords etc. The use of this technique was to increase one's range and power but has a drawback. That is, if you lengthen the chakra blade it grows weaker as it gets thinner, but the shorter and thicker it is the stronger the blade's cutting power is. However, that does not apply to him as he has perfect chakra control and he was naturally good at this skill. Anyways, he taught her the technique and helped her emerge into her Nikko no Tsumarik, making it much strong and deadlier than before. Naruto was meditating as to scan the entire property as he recently had been aware of the fact that the martial artists from the Rinzenpaku had started to investigate him. He was hearing of whispers of people looking for him and it was not the Rinzenpaku masters only. As his informants tell him of that Yami, a shadow organization, is also looking for him. He had to increase the pace of his training for Kasara as she must become stronger faster to protect herself from such threats. Nevertheless, she was doing very well even after she had already done her first mission. Therefore, he had to give her another test, but this one is to see her skill in the shinobi arts he had taught her and to remove her anger. He knew how anger and grudges could ruin a warrior. He called her and told her that she will have her second mission and that he will tell her when she got ready. He also told her to bring all the weapons she thought she would need and the Nikko mask as well. He told her, oh, today you will get what you wanted the most, but what you needed. As you are going to challenge Urinji Mu-chan and Shirahama Kenichi-kun and defeat them both with what I taught you. However, there is a handicap, which is you are not allowed to use any form of ninjutsu when fighting them. But the claws and use of chakra to strengthen your attacks and increase your speed are allowed, but use them minutely as you don't want them dead. She looked happy and her face then changed to a look of serious determination as she said, thank you Shishim, and I will not let you down. But she thought to herself, I will get you Ushijichi and I will win this time too. As if reading her mind, her Shishim said, Kasara, this is a fight to remove your hatred and grudge. We are shinobi and we must be emotionless as we are neutral, remember that. We must not allow our emotions to cloud our judgment during battle. We must not enjoy fighting or killing as we have to protect our loved ones. Always remember the tenets of our ninja. She spoke in a sense of honor and pride saying, we must not harm the innocent as they are who we protect. We must not kill unless we have to. We must always be one with the shadows. We must always protect our path and those we hold dear, even if it would claim our lives. These are the tenets of our shinobi path, our ninja master. He smiled and said, excellent Kasara-chan. Now remember that without these rules, as we would be nothing but killers and mercenaries without them. Now get ready as I will take to their dojo, and if you win I will give you an awesome present. She nodded ecstatically as he held her left shoulder as they both disappeared. Rimzenpaku. Both shinobi appeared in front of the gate of the Rimzenpaku and he faced his disciple and said, you must sneak into the dojo as both of them are there right now, well you go to them I will distract their master, okay. He had that glimmer in eyes that he will fight a great fight. She nodded and she jumped over the wall and proceeded to the dojo with caution. Naruto made sure she went and he wore his sunglasses, then made 5 special kage bunshin, because the normal ones will not last that long. He added a seal array to all of them reinforcing their powers so they would absorb attacks and turn into chakra to use. He mentally ordered them to their targets as he will fight Kamsaka Shigure-sen personally. He summoned his Nadachi sword Kurorashi no Ken. He placed it on his back with Itsuba behind his left shoulder. He whispered to it, don't worry Arashi-kun will have a tremendous fight and just you wait. He and all his clones speeded off to their respective master targets. Insert the song here Skillet Monster. Dojo Rimzenpaku with Kenichi and Mew. Kenichi and Mew were about to start training when a red blur attacked with a kick that sending them flying to the wall of the dojo. Both did not have a chance to defend themselves, they did not feel anyone's presence and the attacker just vanished. Mew got up first, she looked around and did not find anyone. She then made no one was there and said Kenichi-san, are you alright? Kenichi-san, please answer me. Kenichi was knocked out when Mew called out to him. He started to awaken as he asked her, Mew-san what happened, did you knock me out or something? She was about to say something only to interrupted by a familiar but cold voice behind her, yo Shijichi and Kenichi boy, how were you two been doing? Removing her hood and mask, she smiled at them with a very vicious smile, as with her green cat-like slitted eyes that scared both Kenichi and Mew, I have come to pay you two back for helping me last time. Kasara-san, said Kenichi as she vanished only to kick Mew to the wall and started to fight them both. Outside in a clearing with Apachai. The man in a red hooded coat appears before Apachai as he was playing Othello by himself that surprised him and attacked the man as he thought he might be an enemy. He attacked as usual with all his might only for the stranger to stop his punch with just 2 fingers as if it was nothing. That shocked the tan gentle giant as no one can stop his punches as it would kill anyone, but the man in the hood stopped it with 2 fingers. He then remembered that Kensei told them about a man so strong that he stopped a punch easily. The hooded man in red moved Apachai's fist easily and began to speak in Thai and said, oh is this who you treat guests Apachai Apachai? Apachai replied, Appa sorry mister but I thought you were an evil person and I don't know you. So who are you and what do you want? Naruto replied, I am Uzumaki Naruto the Rikudou Sannin, I want to fight you and then I will play Othello later. So what do you say, Apachai-san? The papa you are that super strong master Kensei told us about, right, Appa okay, let's fight. I am Hapachai Apachai the Muay Thai Shinigami. They separated and started fighting as charged at each other. The other side of the dojo with Sakaki Shio. Sakaki Shio was training on his karate moves when he felt someone touch him on the shoulder but did not see anyone so ignored it. Then he felt it again but he did not see anyone so he shouted, hey old man stop bothering me with super speed. Then he heard an unfamiliar voice speak, an old man, me? I am sorry to say that you are way off there dude. I am much young than you, you know. He was surprised and tried to locate from where the voice is coming from but it seemed that it came from everywhere. Then the voice spoke again, oh trying to find little old me I see, how about I just show myself. The tall man in a red hooded coat appeared in front of Sakaki. Then Sakaki remembered just who it is in front of him and entered into an offensive karate stance, you're that master who destroyed the Yakuza and the Chinese mafia, aren't you? Oh you're Uzumaki Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin, right? Oh I am honored that you know of me. You are the karate master of 100th Dan, Sakaki Shio-san, said the man in red as he gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. Oh I am as well it not every day you see someone beat a master level martial artist like you did, said Sakaki. Of course Ma Kensei would have told you how I beaten his brother, so let's start as I am getting bored of this formal introductions and he disappeared surprising Sakaki. Naruto appeared in front of him with his hand in a punching position. Sakaki thought he could defend against forgetting about Naruto's super strength. The inside of the dojo with Mitsuji Akasum. Mitsuji Akasum was working on his throwing statue for Kenichi. He noticed that he could hear Kenichi or Mew, so he got up to check on them. He walked to the training room and he did not notice a shadow behind him. He found that the whole room suddenly had the smell of something he despised the most, green peppers. Then he saw green peppers flying everywhere and dancing in front of him, he could not believe it, and singing calling his name. He rubs his eyes, say to himself in denial, okay, I think I am getting tired from all that work. Yes, that is it. I am just tired, that's all. He opened his eyes almost in fear and found the room the same as always. He sighed and turned only to see a man in a red hood with black flames on the hemline of his coat, and he realized just whom this is. Oh, it is a pleasure to finally meet you personally, Uzumaki Naruto-san, the Rikudou Sannin, bows in acknowledgement. No, the pleasure is all mine, Mitsuji Akasum-san, the philosophical jujutsu master, bows in respect as well. So I would challenge you to a fight, and I would be glad if you would accept it, said Naruto. I would love to, as I would like to see what style you use, therefore I accept your challenge, replied Akasum. Both vanished in bursts of speed, beginning their battle. The inside of the dojo with Kusaka Shigeru. Kusaka Shigeru just finished cleaning her sword and was about to leave her room. She remembered, as she could not find her mouse Tsuchimaru. She called Tsuchimaru to come out, but it did not, so she went to the part of the dojo where she usually trains, as Tsuchimaru is usually there. She looked and did not find him either. She was about to leave only to hear someone unfamiliar talk. Oh, is that rude that you would leave without greeting Kusaka Shigeru-san, said the person. Nevertheless, turned around in a flash, drawing her sword, looking for the origin of the strange voice, but still nothing, and the voice speaks again. You know, Shigeru-san, I would have never thought you would be such a beautiful woman. You are one of the most beautiful women I have ever laid eyes on, you know that. You are also good with animals too, as Tsuchimaru-kun tells me. You are my kind of woman, strong, power, graceful, kind, and most of all a warrior. I would say you are the very image of Yamato Nadeshiko in my honest opinion, even if you are not good at cooking. I can teach you how to cook if you would like. Shigeru was surprised and began to blush bright crimson. No one had ever praised her for being a woman, as she's scary to everyone around her. She did not know who was talking, but he knew her and said that she was beautiful and he likes her as a woman. She never got any praises for her beauty or femininity. She knew nothing about being feminine, therefore she appeared to tomboyish so, and has a long sword, so men who look for her are always warriors, and none of them looked at her as a woman. However, what surprised her the most is he also knew of her pet friend mouse, Tsuchimaru. I am sorry, Shigeru-chan, I have not introduced myself yet. Then a man in a red hooded coat covering his head with a black Nadachi sword on his back with Tsuchimaru eating a piece of cheese on his right shoulder appeared before her. This shocked her as she could not sense him at all, and he appeared out of nowhere. In addition to that, Tsuchimaru never got close to anyone but her and those he considered his friends. However, he just sat there eating on this stranger's shoulder as if they were friends for a long time. Hello there, my lady, I am Uzumaki Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin, and it is a pleasure to finally meet you, Kusaka Shigeru, the prodigy of sword and mistress of all weaponry. I would challenge you to a duel, but there must be stakes involved. Therefore, I would like to suggest that if I win, you go out with me on a date, and if you win, I will do whatever you want. So do we have an agreement, Bukiheim? She nodded as this man in front of her fascinated her. She could feel his power just roll off him. He was very powerful yet very humble, and she found it attractive, which surprised her, and even Tsuchimaru is friendly with him. He lifted his left hand and said, Tsuchimaru-kun, would you be a dear and leave, as this battle might be too dangerous for you? He used his left hand, gave it to Tsuchimaru, who nodded as he got on it, and Naruto lowered him to the ground and waited for the little mouse to leave in order to start. She sheathed her sword as getting ready to start. When Tsuchimaru left, Naruto looked at Shigeru and said, so Shigeru-chan, rules are simple, the first to cut either it be clothes or skin of the other wins, okay. I will toss the coin, we start the second it hits the ground. Ready? She nodded as she placed her hand over her Tsubole's Nadachi. Naruto throws the coin and says with a cool smirk, would like to have this dance with me, lady of weapons. Gentlemanly bows, then place his left hand over the black tsuba of his sword. The coin hits the ground and the duelists draw. Outside in the dojo, elder's area of meditation. Naruto got to this area and he can see the elder and got so close as he sat right next to him and made his presence known, making the old man open his left eye to see whom it was, as he did not feel anyone a second there. The old man said, ho 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 ho, and who might you be, young man? As no one has ever sneaked on me without me knowing it before, meaning you are that Master Kensei was talking about. Yes, I am Uzumaki Naruto, the Rikudou Sannin, at your serves, said Naruto with a bow of his head. So how can I help you, Uzumaki-san? As you would not come here for any reason, inquired the old man. Oh, I would like to fight you, Jiji-san, because you remind me of someone I knew before, and my disciple is fighting your disciple and granddaughter right now. So let begin if you don't mind. The ho-ho. It has been a while since I had a serious fight. Then let us begin, my boy. Great, so we start in 3, 2, 1, go. They both vanished in a blur of speed. Outside in the dojo, Ma Kensei are eating area. Ma Kensei was sitting and reading a new book entitled Icha Icha Paradaisu. It was literary gold, he just got it today, and the writer is new. He felt something in front of him and he's something that shocked the hell out of him. Walking in front of him was a very beautiful of about 25 or so years of age. She had a heart-shaped face with shimmering sky blue eyes with a cute button nose and high cheekbones with a healthy blush on. She had long beautiful blonde hair reaching her heart-shaped erotic ass and had rather large voluptuous breasts of about G or I cup and she had very sexual aura about her. She was wearing a very form-fitting Chinese dress and had high heels. She winked and called at him with her pointer finger and Kensei was about to go to pervert heaven. He smiled and giggled perversely as he tried to attack the young woman, saying, "Oh, great mother of breasts." Only for him to slam to wall hard, knocking him out as the Jinjutsu dispelled. Naruto sweat dropped as he did not even have to fight this one and he already won. He laughed as this person reminded him of his old pervert of sensei and he even acted like him too. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoy it. If you want the next part of this video, turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others videos I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys next video.